Hello, commissioners. Are we about ready to get going? Yeah. All right. Do it. Ooh. I'd like to call the March 14th, 2022 Mobility and Traffic Safety Commission meeting to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Vice Chair Michael Von Neumann,
Present.
Glenn Johnson,
Present.
Robert Prendergast,
Here.
Mary Lou Schultz,
Here.
Patricia Trouth,
Here.
and Jim Wang.
Here.
I'd like to welcome Jim to the commission.
I think you forgot me. I'm also here.
I'm sorry. June Hansberger is here.
Present.
But I'd like to welcome Jim as our new commissioner. Good to see you.
Welcome, Jim.
If everyone could stand and join in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. First on our agenda, actually number 4, is oral communications. It's where people from the community have an opportunity to come and talk on any topic they want to in front of our commission. You get 3 minutes. Amanda, do we have any speakers?
We do.
Great.
We have 11 speakers tonight for oral communications. I'll call your name and you'll have 3 minutes to address the commission.
Excuse me, Chair. I'm not sure if we have any, but we might have the fact that we added Clark Avenue to the log, and it's the last item on the log. If we have any speakers that want to talk about Clark Avenue, I think it might be a good idea not to keep our residents all the way to the end of the meeting here. If you want to ask them to.
Sure.
Maybe
Is there
communication.
anybody here to talk about Clark Avenue? And are you okay with going first? And okay. We can do that.
All of our speakers are, I have them down for oral communication, so we'll get through Clark Avenue and everyone.
Okay. So we're going to talk about Clark Avenue, Abe?
Not to go too much deep into their agenda, but it was voted by the commission for it to be added to the log. So I'll be providing some information about the Clark as we discussed, just informational purposes only. I'll provide to the commission just as an FYI. But I didn't want the residents to sit all the way because when the log is presented, we can't obviously make a decision or anything. It's just updates.
Okay. But we can go ahead. They can speak now, for sure. Okay.
So we'll have Cindy Cremona, followed by Cynthia Shaya Palmer.
I live in Lucadia, and along with my neighbors, will be directly impacted by the Clark project. I'm wondering if any of you have driven through our neighborhoods yet. If you have, you would scratch your heads in wonder at what our city leadership was thinking when they added this 199-unit apartment project to the Fifth Element housing cycle. Driving into Union, which the developer's attorney, by the way, describes as robust, you may immediately have to squeeze over to let trucks go by. Along with this busy agricultural business, you'll find a pet boarding facility at the west end of Union, which pet owners frequent all day, every day. Am I okay here? Because I feel like I've got some echo. Good? In between these businesses in Saxony are a small community of older and newer residential homes. There are no sidewalks or road striping. It's another eclectic Lucadia community that defines our district's unique character. The city, in its lack of wisdom, chose Union and Clark Streets for its ingress and egress, which, using the city's calculations, will create 2,000 vehicular road trips per day. Exiting Union onto Saxony, one must edge out onto Saxony to see over the hill on either side of the stop sign. It is often a long wait for a traffic gap. If you are entering the project from the Clark and Lucadia side, you can't help but notice that Clark is so narrow that two cars can't pass each other at the same time. In fact, it's such a problem, the developer's attorney is proposing to redline a third of Clark, thereby reducing parking for residents, or has suggested that their front yards may be reduced to accommodate traffic. If I'm not mistaken, that's called eminent domain, and I believe Encinitas has protections against arbitrary claims to residents' private property. If this isn't bad enough, drivers who lack the patience to wait in 20 minutes of traffic will quickly figure out they can cut through Puebla to Del Riego, Del Rio, and La Mirada to get to Lucadia Boulevard. And if you think Clark is narrow, try driving through those 80-year-old neighborhoods with cars parked on both sides of the street and barely enough room for one car, let alone two. I've not even mentioned the Pueblo Barrier, which Tortilla Flats residents petitioned to have erected 20 years ago to stop the cut-through traffic that is now threatening to disrupt what are now safe streets for children, cyclists, pets, and pedestrians. Though the developer claims they have no intention of opening that barrier, they did suggest opening it during the years of impending construction. That portion of Puebla, which leads to Saxony, is so narrow that if cars are parked on either side of the road, only one car can get through at a time. I just have a few more sentences, may I? Thank you. I hope you're getting the message that this poorly planned density project is not only placing a burden on the infrastructure of the community, but is also putting entire communities in harm's way. This is the wrong project in the wrong location, and it seems everyone but our city council knows this. I implore this committee to visit our community and speak sense to city leadership on why this project should never be approved. Thank you.
Next, we have Cynthia Shaya Palmer, followed by Dick Stern.
Good evening. Can you cue the slides, please? Shaya Palmer, yeah. Don't start the timer yet, please. Okay, let's make sure I can do this. Okay. Great, okay. Okay, so my name is Cynthia Shaya Palmer. Yeah, so thank you all for your time. Really appreciate you taking the time to allow me to express my concerns with the safety and the mobility and the traffic that is going to be a result of the Clark Apartments. Before I do that, I feel very compelled to tell you about the background and how this site landed on the plan. I was involved back in 2018, and basically what happened was that this site was substituted for another site that came off within 1 month of final approval. So a site came off, this site got put in, 1 month later the whole thing was approved. So it did not have the due diligence of what the other sites had. It was basically bootstrapped into the ballot measure. Okay, so that gives you an idea of how quickly this whole thing turned. Both the Planning Commission and City Council members, some did say that this was a very bad site. And when you look up here, you can see it is a bad site. You can't see a pointer. Is there a pointer on this? Oh well, I don't want to take my time. But anyway, the Clark Apartments are in that red box. The white line up at the very, very top is Lucadia Boulevard. This doesn't have a pointer. Does it? Okay. Is that you? Thank you. Okay. Yeah, that's Lucadia Boulevard. And the Clark Apartments is down in the bottom. You cannot get to that site unless you go through rural roads. Absolutely. You don't have easy access like all the other 14 sites have. And so the difference is the only way to get there is one lane rural street. So it looks like this. Okay, how come it's not going forward? Can you forward it? Okay, it looks like this. So Clark is on the bottom left. That's today. I just did a stroll. It's not staged. Okay, it is not an exception. It is the rule. In our neighborhood, when two cars are coming by each other, one car has to pull over. So when you're adding 200 apartments buried against the freeway in the back of this neighborhood, with up to 800 residents, doubling the population, we're going to have a problem. So we're bringing it here to you guys proactively, so you don't have to fix a mess on the other side. Okay, so that's why we're bringing this to you now. The other thing I didn't talk about, can you go back, please? Is I want to talk about the Pueblo Barrier. So I've been in this neighborhood for over 30 years. I was there when Lucadia Boulevard was a dead end. I know what that evolution was like when Lucadia opened up. And what happened was people got super antsy when they hit that red light. If you could point to Lucadia Boulevard and Saxony, please. That light right there, people were not happy about sitting at that light when they were late for their kids' swim class or their yoga class or their medical appointment. So just 2 seconds, please. So what they did was they went through all those side streets, Saxony, La Mirada, Clark, zooming, cutting through to Puebla. And that was back in the day of 2000. Fast forward, and we're going to have a lot more very antsy people with all the increased traffic. So Pueblo Barrier must stay through construction, through everything else, or we're going to end up with a real safety hazard. So I implore you all to please be proactive with all this new construction coming in, because the decisions we all make today affect all of us in perpetuity. Okay, so thank you. Thank you for the extra time.
Next, we have Dick Stern, followed by Allison Wilachowski.
Good evening. My name is Dick Stern, and I am a member of the Encinitas Ranch Community Association. That's a homeowners association of 500 homes that adjoins Quail Gardens Drive. I'm here tonight on behalf not only of the Encinitas Ranch Community Association, but the Quail Park Homeowners Association and One Channel Island HOA that collectively have nearly 600 homes in developments that adjoin Quail Gardens Drive. Every homeowner in those HOAs has to use Quail Gardens Drive to enter and exit their development. The homeowners have watched the planning of these new housing developments along Quail Gardens Drive with growing alarm. They strongly support the need for affordable housing being built in Encinitas Ranch. However, we're going to see, we estimate, between 700 and 1,100 housing units that are going to be built along Quail Gardens Drive, which is an astounding number of new units. The road was built to non-standard guidelines in terms of width and has become extremely congested and unsafe during most of the day. Nearly all vehicles appear to be traveling at speeds well over the posted 35 miles per hour. Attempting to make a left turn out of many of the streets along the road is a very dangerous proposition and will with no doubt lead to more accidents in the future. Riding a bicycle on this road is an absolute accident waiting to happen. We have yet to see anything from the city about proposed plans for traffic calming to address these very important issues. The addition of these new housing units will just exacerbate the current traffic problems on Quail Gardens Drive. That road was never meant to handle the current traffic volume, and introducing thousands of more vehicles will just make the situation worse. These very issues were raised back in 2017 by the E3 Cluster, a collective of organizations that have property that also adjoins Quail Gardens Drive, and that included the Botanic Gardens, the Leash Tag Foundation, and the Encinitas Union School District. The E3 work was designed to promote a comprehensive solution that would calm the traffic on both Quail Gardens Drive and Saxony Road. In the opinion of the firm that conducted the study, they opined that both roads needed to be addressed in tandem to avoid merely shifting intensity from one road to the other. The Leash Tag Foundation donated $125,000 to develop the study, and it was presented to the Traffic Commission at the time and essentially completely discarded. The plan remains both solid and timely. We urge you to revisit the good work that was done 5 years ago and take action now to develop and implement strong mitigation plans to address these issues in the development before the developments are built. Thank you.
And we received a letter.
Yeah, Thank you.
Next speaker is Allison Wilachowski. followed by Courtney Lapin.
Hello, members of the Traffic Commission. My name is Allison Wilichowski, and I'm the Executive Director of the Cardiff 101 Main Street Association. Cardiff 101 represents both the businesses and the residents, particularly in the downtown Cardiff area. Part of Cardiff 101's vision is to provide attractive entrances into Cardiff by the Sea, to secure a safe and healthy environment, and to promote a walkable community that provides goods and services for local residents and visitors alike. Cardiff 101 is in support of the Manchester Avenue and San Alejo Crosswalk, a trail connectivity to the San Alejo Lagoon. Linking the San Alejo Lagoon trail system, Linking the San Alejo Lagoon trail system to the Solana Beach community will help to provide safe pedestrian access to and from the Cardiff residential and business communities. Also, having an accessible pedestrian route into downtown Cardiff will support our local businesses with increased foot traffic from Solana Beach through the lagoon. Cardiff 101 feels what is needed in this area of Cardiff is a defined pedestrian pathway to the Cardiff Downtown Commercial District through the lagoon. This is currently not accessible or easy to navigate. Installing a crosswalk over to Manchester and then installing wayfinder signs to the community's points of interest would be a great solution in addition to the connectivity to the lagoon. Cardiff 101 is in support of safety measures being put in place such as crosswalks, signage, and other forms of visual communication to ensure persons in a car, on a bike, or on foot will know where to go and how to get there in a safe way for all. We are fully in support of this project and hope to help in any way possible. I did want to say this, because I missed it, and this is my first time actually without a paper, because I wanted to try to be like environmentally friendly, which was a poor choice because it's on my phone. But I did want to also say that part of Cardiff 101's vision is to provide an attractive entrance into Cardiff by the Sea, to secure a safe and healthy environment, and to promote a walkable community that provides goods and services for local residents and visitors alike. So we're in support of this Manchester Avenue and San Alejo Avenue crosswalk and trail connectivity to the San Alejo Lagoon. Thank you very much for your time.
Next, we have Courtney Lapin, followed by Ross Ritter.
Are you ready? Okay. So I'm Courtney Lapin. I'm a resident of the Cardiff Walking District. I'm also a commissioner with Mr. Ritter on the Parks and Rec Commission for the City of Encinitas. And I sent you all an email today as well, giving you an overview of my experiences trying to access the wonderful trails that have been added to the San Alejo Lagoon. I live less than half a mile from the nature center at the San Alejo Lagoon, but there's no clear or safe path to get from my residence into the lagoon. So I can either backtrack through an alley off of Manchester, cross San Alejo at a S-curve, skirt the road and go down the steps into the lagoon, or you can take Manchester. But as our fellow neighbors from Clark Avenue have discussed, Manchester's also got parking on both sides. It's very difficult for a car to pass through safely, let alone two cars. You add pedestrians and dogs and kids and strollers and scooters into that mix, and it's a very dangerous path to take to get down to the lagoon. So for people who live close by and want to be able to access it, there is no clear path in which to do so safely. You're either jaywalking or you're skirting in and out of cars as traffic is coming, as there's no sidewalks on either side of Manchester. The other concern is living close to the San Alejo curve up along the coast. You see a lot of people who don't know the area well going down that on foot. And it's an incredibly dangerous intersection to both turn left down into the lagoon, but also to try to navigate with cars coming in both directions. So we would like to request that this commission take a look at that intersection and help us figure out a safe way to access the wonderful work that's being done by the city around the lagoon and through to Solana Beach. Thank you.
Courtney, a quick question. So as you
come down Manchester towards San Alejo, you get to that funky three-way intersection.
Right.
If you stay on the north side, and isn't there a sidewalk that kick in? And you can take the sidewalk down to the water treatment facility and cross there?
No.
No, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, no. So on Manchester itself, once you've turned right, so when you're
Which way
on
is that?
Manchester and you turn right onto Manchester going into downtown Cardiff.
Right.
So San Alejo would be if you continued straight.
Yes.
There is a partial sidewalk on the west side of Manchester that lasts like 2 houses in, and then
Right.
it disappears.
Right.
And at that point, you have people's yards, so vegetation right up to the curb, and then cars.
Right.
And then traffic, and then cars on the other side. So there's no safe way even to walk down Manchester, frankly. And then once you get to that three-way intersection where it's San Alejo, Manchester, and then Manchester towards the Lagoon,
Right.
there's really no clear path as to how you should get into the Lagoon. You can see the steps, but there's no obvious way to get there other than to just cross over and then walk the bike path or the shoulder.
Right.
into the
Isn't there a
lagoon.
dirt path, so you can do, it's a three-way stop sign, so it is a monitored intersection, correct?
Correct.
It's because I run there often, and I do
Yes.
those trails and I love them. But it is a three-way stop that you can cross and get on the lagoon side into a dirt path, correct? It's not actually a path, but you
Yeah,
can
the
get into
path is generous,
the
but-
dirt and then walk to the stairs. It's about a half a block to the stairs, correct?
Correct.
And that's the section, I just want to be clear, that's the
Yes.
section you're discussing. So you're saying crosswalk there to a trail through the dirt to the stairs is what you're requesting?
That would be great.
Because that's not a long distance. That's all. I
It
just
is,
wanted to
yes.
Yeah,
And-
if I can interrupt for a second, this item is actually on our follow-up log, so we will be discussing it a little more in detail when the follow-up log comes up in our agenda.
Okay,
But we are
perfect.
very aware of this section.
Of the issue.
Abe
Yeah.
just put it up.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other, just in addition to, not to cloud, because I think this is the most critical portion.
Can
but-
we talk about it during the
Oh,
follow-up log?
sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
My bad. Thank you. Thank you, Abe.
Good evening, Commissioners and staff. My name is Ross Ritter, and I spoke with you in your October meeting regarding the San Alejo and Manchester Avenue intersection and trail connectivity to the San Alejo Lagoon. I'd like to thank Commissioner Trout for meeting with me on site and for her motion to add this important pedestrian safety issue to the commission follow-up log. I'd also like to thank Abe Bandigan for meeting with me on site as well, and for his time and the staff time for preparing a couple concepts for us to consider today. I look forward to seeing the presentation. I serve on the Parks and Rec Commission and on the Trails Master Plan Implementation and Connectivity Subcommittee. We look at connecting opportunities, not only between our city trails, but also trails from surrounding cities in the county. One of our goals is to assist our residents and visitors to safely access the many existing trails to our beautiful outdoors and to establish connections where there are none or need improvement. It's very exciting to see the new pedestrian and bicyclist infrastructure nearing completion on the north side of the San Alejo Lagoon. Unfortunately, this new infrastructure stops short of serving the Cardiff downtown community. The San Alejo Avenue-Manchester Avenue intersection is the weak link in the mobility plan and should be improved. With the completion of the new infrastructure, the I-5 freeway will actually have safer access to the lagoon trails than Cardiff downtown residents who live right next to it. This is also a unique opportunity for the city to partner with local organizations like the Nature Collective and Cardiff 101 to not only make it safer to reach the lagoon from our homes and businesses, but also beautify the area with native plants around a Cardiff by the Sea entrance sign proposed in the current paved triangular area, and support the Nature Collective's goal of removing invasive plants from our lagoon ecosystem. And as an added bonus, opening the views of our treasured lagoon for all to enjoy. Finally, this is also a good time to consider the addition of wayfinder signs and the best way to direct pedestrians visiting from Solana Beach to our downtown Cardiff businesses and points of interest. Creating both a crosswalk and trail connectivity to the northern trailhead of the Lagoon is strongly advocated by the Cardiff community, as evidenced by the Nature Collective, Cardiff 101 Main Street, Cardiff Town Council, and Encinitas Bike and Walk, all sending representatives to speak tonight, along with some Cardiff residents. Also, I know some Cardiff residents have sent emails to the commission requesting these improvements. With this strong showing of support for safer pedestrian access to the lagoon, I hope you'll expedite the process of finalizing a concept and seek city council funding as soon as possible. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Doug Gibson, followed by Bill Lawson.
Good evening. My name is Doug Gibson. I'm the Executive Director and Principal Scientist for Nature Collective, formerly the San Elijo Lagoon Conservancy. Nature Collective's mission is to drive a passion for nature for all. We look at this from an inclusivity point of view where those who haven't had access to nature, we want to try to provide it. Those that do have that affinity to nature, we want to make sure that we are providing safe and effective ways for people to get down to these spaces. I've been the director for 26 years now, and it's taken me that long to get to where we're at today in terms of finishing the full restoration plan for the lagoon. This has involved a $120 million expense. And as you can see, if you've been down there, I did the best I could in getting as many trail connections as possible. I connected us finally to Solana Beach from the Nature Center with the two bridges, but I also got lucky and got an undercrossing in the rail. So now you can actually get up onto the property we bought at Harbaugh at the beginning of Cardiff from the other side and Solana Beach. So this just makes sense. This was an area we couldn't include. We got from Highway 5 to the water treatment plant with a trail and a bike path that we be able to access the bike path behind the water treatment center, but we couldn't go any further because it just didn't have jurisdiction in our footprint. So we really support this connection. The taking down of invasive plants, acacia that's there, as a resident, as a 34-year resident of Encinitas, having that view shed open is going to be worth $1 million. But removing those plants for the biological integrity of the lagoon is as essential, knowing that we have dozens of federally, state endangered and threatened species in this lagoon. This is a biological hotspot, one of the highest biological hotspots in the nation. So I think we should all let our residents have a safe access point from that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Next we have,
Good evening.
that's fine.
I'm Bill Lawson, and I'm a board member of the Cardiff Town Council. And I'm here today speaking on behalf of the Cardiff Town Council. I am here today also to tell you that that safety improvements at the intersection of Manchester and San Elijo are needed. Crosswalk is kind of what we're talking about, along with some of the things that other people have already addressed. We're very fortunate to have the beautiful San Elijo Nature Reserve right here in our community. Safe access to the lagoon is a priority. Currently, pedestrian access to the lagoon is being improved for East and Cardiff residents. Right now, a pedestrian and bike path are being built from Birmingham Drive, which will go all the way to the new signaled intersection right at the entrance to the San Elijo Lagoon Visitor Center. However, residents who live further west or near downtown Cardiff face unsafe conditions when entering the lagoon from the Manchester-San Elijo intersection. I live on Manchester Avenue in Cardiff, and I cross into the lagoon from the intersection of Manchester and San Elijo all the time. So I can speak from personal experience that it can be sometimes very challenging getting through this intersection on foot. Cars come into the intersection fast. The drivers don't seem to be aware that there are pedestrians trying to cross, and sometimes it's a little dicey. In the coming months, the new additional bike and pedestrian improvements along Manchester to I-5 and the new pedestrian and bike bridge under I-5 will only increase the amount of pedestrian and bike traffic in this area. The Manchester-San Alejo intersection is the weakest link in the entire pedestrian transportation network around the lagoon. Dog walkers, parents with children, runners, seniors, teenagers, everybody, they all navigate this dangerous intersection in order to enjoy the beautiful lagoon. Residents who are entering the lagoon by crossing at Manchester and San Alejo need a safer pedestrian access. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Judy Burlfine, followed by Jean Chapo.
Hello, I'm Judy Burlfine, and I'm here on behalf of Encinitas Bike Walk as the co-leader. I think everyone said what you need to know. It's really unsafe there, and we need to fix it. Crosswalk would be wonderful. Putting in a DG path would be fabulous. In the short term, to put sharrows down on that S-curve where there's no bike lane would be helpful, though I personally don't feel comfortable in sharrows. So in the long term, somehow figure out how we can put in a bike lane so people can, who aren't comfortable in the middle of the street, can ride safely. I think that's everything. I applaud anything to improve the safety over there because Doug has done an unbelievable job of fixing that place up, and the more people who can get there walking and biking is wonderful. Thank you.
Next, we have Jean Chapo, followed by Craig Campion.
Good evening, and thank you for doing what you do. My name is Jean Chapo. I live on Union Street, and with the Union and Clark Apartments project, I feel like Planning Commission probably is pretty smart in asking you to take a look at this project when it does come along. The reason being, I think one of the major impacts is going to be traffic, and your expertise, I think, will be absolutely necessary. When Channel Islands 1 was put together way back, one of the smart things the city did was they split the project in half and allowed traffic to go two different directions. This project, if you take a look at it, is 199 units, and it's a long, thin project with access at each end of it. I'd like, and I posed this to Planning Commission and Oral Communications also, but I'd like you to think about the possibility of splitting the project and allowing access going both directions for the project. I'll tell you that both of the streets that serve this project are not up to what's necessary to serve the project. Union Street has an asphalt pavement of about 18 feet from one end to the other, with really serious issues with Union Street joining Saxony. Really almost impossible at this point without the additional 200 people in the apartments. Now, the site, I'm way down the line with the site. That happened a long time ago, and David Meyer and all of the other stuff, and shifting this and shifting that, and selecting the site that was in a residential neighborhood when the city told us they absolutely would not do that. We're way down the line with that. I've built my house 35 years ago on Union Street with my own hands, and I love being in Encinitas. I love this city. I was on the Planning Commission for 8 years, and I don't begrudge other people coming here to live and understanding why they would want to do so. So I happily will join those 200 families that are going to participate in Encinitas, and only ask that they do so respectfully, and only ask that you take a look at how these issues can be mitigated and how these problems can be mitigated in a respectful way. The CPP meeting that we all attended online, I got the impression that the developer was pretty cavalier. He really has a by right project and really didn't want to do anything, didn't want to do any studies, didn't want to do any improvements to the street. And my feeling is, come on, this is a project that deserves some improvements to the street. We have a simple paved asphalt street with no sidewalks. So streets are not just automobiles. We've got pedestrians, we've got bicycles, we've got all these other things that need to be considered. So when you see this project come along, I'm just asking you to take a look at it and say, this could be a lot better. Thank you.
Next, we have Craig Campion, followed by Lauren Linhoff.
Craig Campion, Poinsettia Park HOA. I came and spoke last month regarding the Clark Avenue project, and I just wanted to thank you for actually looking at this in more detail tonight and later on when it comes up. I agree with Gene, it needs to be looked at from your side of the viewpoint, because like Gene said, the developer pretty much came and talked with our neighborhood too and just thought it was ready to go. So I actually served on the parking commission for a couple of years back in 2008, 2009. And so there was some question about whether this fell under your purview. And so the lady back there last month noted something in the Safety Commission's duties. And I went and looked it up. It is the duty of the commission to serve as a liaison between the public and city council and to conduct analysis and provide recommendations to the council on matters related to safety and mobility of all modes of transportation. So I think that's exactly what you do, and that's what we did back in 2008, 2009 when Rob Blau was the traffic engineer. So I looked at our calendar. I know there was some question of how often you could meet, if you'd be able to have time to look at this kind of stuff. And our calendar back there was actually every month. And I was shocked because I didn't recall that being every month, but we did meet 12 times a year, except maybe if they canceled one meeting because there was nothing on the agenda in the summer or something. But yeah, if you could look at this and maybe pass it back and forth from the Planning Commission, that's what we formally did back in the old days. And one thing I do respect and thank you for, if you could go and take a look at the project, that was the thing I spent most of my time on. When something came in front of the Traffic Commission, I used to go out, I had a flexible job, spend hours watching what happened at the various sites that were coming up before the commission. And I do want to thank you too, because there was one thing I always wanted to push through the commission when I was on it was Encinitas Boulevard between Sprouts and where Walgreens is now. It was very dangerous. I used to watch it like once a week, amazed that nobody was getting smashed while I was there because you could see the cars running into each other. But somewhere along the line in the last couple of years, maybe some of you were on the commission at that time, you finally corrected it. So I told my wife, even 10 years later, at least I got something done. It wasn't me, but it was the present board. Thanks a lot.
Next, we have Lauren Linhoff, followed by Christy Clark.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Lauren Linhoff. My husband and I are here. We live on the Clark south end, 2 doors down from the development proposed. Our street would be red curbed right in front of our house, so no, can you guys hear me? Oh, okay. No additional parking's been proposed for any of the guests for the 6 houses. We live directly across from the development where they put in houses just 2 years ago. They gave them and us 2 spots right there, but the street's not wide enough to pass as it is right now. I also specifically, everyone's brought up amazing points for the Union access and the Clark just not being sufficient at all. But I wanted to speak to accessing the 5 through Lucadia Boulevard. We get San Marcos traffic, we get La Costa traffic. It's a great way to get to and from the 5. But right now, if you're coming out of Clark and taking that left, it's a yield. You're dealing with the Capri traffic in the morning, trying to go through. People are trying to go eastbound, and it's already gridlocked through the crosswalk and heading towards Saxony. So to safely get through that light, you're waiting and waiting and waiting until the light to go southbound 5 clears, and then you get to hop through that. Or you either get into the right lane and then try to merge in unsafely to then go south. I just wanted to reiterate that problem is already here. We have Fox Point being developed, Clark, and it's just going to get worse. So we just want some solutions. We're not against development. We are so grateful to live here. And thank you for your time and your efforts.
Just, can I ask you a question? I'm sorry. When you were saying when you come out Clark, the light to go left, you're saying it's just a green light, not a left-hand arrow, and it's a yield, so you're asking for a left-hand arrow, if it was possible. I don't know if it's possible, but yes. Well, because then it would let you turn left. I don't even know if it's possible, but I think we are discussing signals later. Yes. Okay, thank you.
Hello, thank you for letting me speak. I apologize for being late. The door was locked and I waited for somebody to come out to let me in because I was late, but my fault. I am an owner, Christy Clark, I'm an owner on Clark Avenue on the east side of the road that has the sidewalk. And I have owned the property for 6 years, and my biggest concerns is that all of the homes that are in those blocks of Del Rigo, Clark, Puebla, 160 to 200 homes, whatever it is, and obviously some with additional homes on them. Anybody heading to the 5 comes to Clark Avenue off Puebla. They don't go out their street to go up to Saxony to make a U-turn, to head back down to Clark, to then proceed through Clark to get to the 5 to head north or south. Some people may go up to Saxony and go across, but even Saxony is a terrible street, no sidewalks, 2 lanes, lots of traffic at the Y. The intersection of Encinitas Boulevard, getting onto 5 is a lot of times horrendous as well. And the additional traffic from 199 homes is only going to exacerbate that. It's also the painting the curb red on one side. If you ever spend any amount of time on that street, right now, I have to go to the neighbors and ask them if the person who lives in their ADU in the back could please come and move the car out of the way in the front of my small space so I can actually put my trash cans on the street on Sunday night so that Monday morning, I can't get them out there Monday morning. I have no guarantee the person's going to be gone then either. And it's a repetitive, goes along for a couple weeks, then all of a sudden the same car keeps parking there again. And I see it up and down the street everywhere. And, to our benefit, many of those homes are all being redeveloped along Clark, the existing old ones, if you've also noticed the turnover. And they're just bringing in bigger families, more traffic. The SR9, SR10, or SB9, SB10, allowing additional ADUs to be built, as well as a junior suite without the city of Encinitas requiring, or maybe the state requiring, that you provide off-street parking. But the city of Encinitas is approving all these ADUs or junior suites that are taking over a garage or the parking spot that is currently used for anybody living on there. So you go from 2 to 3 or 4 people in a home to 6 people, possibly to 8. So it just keeps growing. And as much as we love everybody to use public transportation, we don't use it. So it's just gonna make it. And the road is like way too narrow with a sidewalk on one side, only part of the way. And even Pueblo only has one on one side, I think, right? So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Excuse me, I didn't catch your name. Christy Clark, thank you.
That's our final speaker.
Okay. I want to thank everybody for coming out. It seemed like everybody was talking on 2 items that are actually on our follow-up log, which is usually at the end of the meeting. I don't know, is it possible for us to move that up since we have all these people? At least we could address these 2 issues, the Clark and the Manchester.
Yes, Chair.
San
In
Leo.
anticipation of this, I added Well, I did add a word into number 1 update, the presentation, which is not a presentation. I'm just going to provide some information on Clark Avenue project. And number 2 is the crosswalk. So 1 and 2 will be covering.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so if the audience could bear with us for a couple things, we'll get to those items pretty quick. But thank you, everybody, for coming out and sharing your thoughts and ideas and concerns. We definitely hear it. We probably are familiar with a lot of the situations, and we're very sympathetic. I'm going to speak for myself. I wish I had a magic wand and I could fix everything, but we'll keep working toward it as best we can. So the next item on our agenda is special presentations, proclamations, and announcements. The first one, A, is nomination and selection of chair for Mobility and Traffic Safety Commission. Are there any nominations from the commission?
I'd like to nominate Michael von Neumann.
And I'd like to second that nomination.
Any
As
other
chair.
nominations? No? I guess we vote. How do we vote now? I don't know how we vote.
You can't vote.
What's that saying? If nominated, no, I don't know what that was. Technology.
No, yes, I made the motion, seconded by Commissioner Schultz. Get to push the buttons.
Oh.
I just pushed this agenda motion twice. I don't.
Yeah.
It says on the floor. Am I missing it?
No,
Okay.
correct. I think we all have the same screen.
Mine looks different.
Did you sign in? No, you have to tap your name.
Oh.
You didn't sign
Are you sure you don't want to change mine?
I just started pushing a bunch of buttons. There we go. There you go. Motion passes. Can we do the wave?
No.
All right. Do you see the results, Amanda?
So that's
It's
it?
done.
Okay, well, thank you. Bear with me as I become more familiar with running meetings and all. But thank you. But now I think we need to accept nominations even though it's not on the agenda. Can we accept nominations for vice chair or do we have to wait till next month?
Correct. No, I think we can do it.
It's not on the agenda.
Yeah, it's not on the agenda. So we'll wait till next month and we'll do vice chair.
Okay, just promise you'll attend next month. So we won't have a chair and we won't have a vice chair.
We'll wait till next month on that. We'll wait till next month on that. Okay, 5B is Mobility and Traffic Safety Commission Subcommittee updates. Do we have any updates at this time?
Hello, this is Glenn Johnson. We don't have a whole lot of them. The city council was briefed on this in their meeting of, when was it? In a meeting in November, Evan Jadiak briefed the city council on the status at that time. And since then, there's been no new information. I would presume that they're progressing on schedule. at least billing regularly, and that in a few months, we'll have a draft plan on the floor
For the mobility element.
for the mobility element.
Okay.
And the contract was that they will submit 3 plans, and those will go through significant public review as well as commission review. And then we'll see what happens next.
Okay, thank you, Glenn. Okay, 5C is city traffic engineer updates on safety and mobility projects citywide, including but not limited to. Number 1 is development project citywide and presentations.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I believe the standard monthly updates for development projects citywide was presented to the commission in the package. I did talk to the engineer who reviews our traffic impact analyses for various development projects, asked for some information about Clark as was directed by the commission last month. As you've heard from some of our residents here tonight, the project is about 200 units, apartment complex being built there in the area. Let me see if I have something to... about 200 units. I have a summary, I think. Okay. This is the location by Lucadia, Clark, Pueblo on north and Union on south. Project generates around 1,200 trips per day. On average, around 8% in the morning and 9% of that in the PM peak. So it generates around 100 or so during peak periods of morning and afternoon, out of which the egress is about 80-20, 75-25, something like that. So the standards show that this project will generate an additional 75 to 80 vehicles during AM peak going out, and around the same number in the afternoon. About 15 to 20 vehicles will be coming in during the same peak periods. So the number, obviously, in the morning going out is 75, 80, coming back is 15, 20. In the afternoon is reverse, 15, 20 going out, 75, 80 coming back. And this number is the distribution that was agreed on during the meetings with the consultant is about 50-50. I believe it's 55-45. A little bit higher was given to Clark, a little bit lower was given to Union Access. So this number would be divided by those 55-45 percentages. So let's say during AM peak that we have 100 trips generated from the project, about 55-60 of these will be on Clark, about 40 of these will be on Union. So this would give you an idea of what the study shows as the impact of this project on the roads around in the vicinity based on the standards that we have. Now, these are not standards that we can change in any way or discuss or negotiate. These are numbers that are in our manuals and standards that everybody uses the same tables. So these trip generation numbers, these percentages, these are all a given. It's not like a company or a consultant can come negotiate with the staff and choose a different number. They studied various study intersections. This is, oh, I'm not showing it, I'm sorry. They studied, by the developer's consultant, they studied various intersections and they evaluated various scenarios to identify intersections and roadway segment capacities. This is just a summary. And at these locations, the level of service was acceptable, mostly B, C. I think there were a few Ds, but there were no failing intersections. The current volume on Clark and Union are pretty low. They're at around, I think, 1,200, 1,400, somewhere in that range. So between 1,000 and 1,500, the surveys showed. So these were the numbers. And the process of evaluating impact, again, there are clear thresholds and there are clear guidelines on how an impact would constitute a significant impact and what the mitigations are. There are some improvements recommended in the study, including a contribution toward improving the road, contribution toward adding a bike lane. There are fair share contributions included in there, but as far as the project generating a significant impact based on our manuals and standards and thresholds, it does not. The numbers are not there to trigger a significant impact that would require any kind of override by council or anything like that. That's a summary. I mean, if there are more questions, I'd be happy to answer, but this shows the in and outs, the splits that I was talking about, and the number of trips and units and the intersections that was studied, project location. I do have the distribution percentages if you want to see those, the turning radius, the turning volume numbers and all those things, but with that, I'm open to questions, if any.
I have one. Can you go back to that chart really quick? So as we look at this, the size of the apartment building is going to be 199 apartments, right? And I'm just to clarify, you were saying that 199 apartments is only going to generate 75 outward trips in the morning and 40 in. Was that? Can you just clarify that again?
Correct. Yes.
It doesn't seem to make sense to me, because if you have 199 apartments, you probably have at least 2 people in there. And I mean, even if we just said only half of the people were leaving, that would be 100 trips in and out if they're just going out once and back in for the day. So can you clarify your numbers?
Yes, so these are not my numbers. These come from the National Institute of Traffic Engineers. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of surveys done around the country during the past decades. There is a very big volume, it's like this thick, different land uses around the country based on the surveys that have been undertaken in different cities and different states. They gather all those and create these diagrams and charts, and these numbers come off of those studies, and they're adopted in San Diego by Santek. Santek has this table called San Diego Not So Brief Guide on Trip Generation. It's downloadable, everybody can see that, and there are around 50, 60 different type of land uses, single-family houses, apartments, restaurants, coffee shops. There are a lot of different land uses. You can go check in there. It says per square foot, per dining table, per chair in a movie theater, per, like, based on different specifications of the development, it gives you how many trips it generates and how the split of that is. For apartment complexes, the number is 6 trips per day per dwelling unit. This is the rate. And again, this is something that is adopted in the county, and everybody uses that. So this 200 units will be multiplied by 6. It becomes 1194. That's the total number of trips generated per day. And then 8% is the share for the AM peak, and 9% is the share for the PM peak. So 8% of 1194 goes into and out of the project in the morning. 9% of that 1194 goes into and out of the project in the afternoon. And the split in the morning is 20% going in, 80% going out, which leads to 19 vehicles going in during AM peak, 76 vehicles going out in AM peak. And these two, as I said, will be divided between Clark and Union, which Clark was around 55% of these two, and Union was 45%, if I remember correctly. So a lot of calculations and mathematics, but what I want to reiterate is, because there is always this concern that a lot of times developers play games and consultants play games and they negotiate different things with the staff. These numbers, everybody in the county uses the same numbers. These numbers are not negotiable. The developers and their consultants can negotiate with us with regards to the percentages of these trips distributed around the project. They can say, oh, we think 30% will use Clark, 70% will use Union, or vice versa, or maybe nobody goes toward the freeway, everybody will go east on Lucadia. These type of negotiations happen, so we try to be making decisions that are reasonably rational, defensible, but the trip generation is not negotiable. These are fixed numbers. Yes.
Okay, just one more clarification. So the ADT is the added daily trip, so you're saying that's 1,194?
Correct.
And then I guess what I'm not understanding is I don't understand the 8%. So what is where does the 8% come from on the AM and the 9% on the PM. What does that mean? Where does
So-
that come from?
8% of the 1,200, let's say 1,200 for simplicity, 8% of this 1,200 trips that happen during the day happen during morning peak. So around 96 trips, if we assume 1,200, 8% would be 96. So around 96 vehicular trips out of this 1,200 happens during our morning peak, which is probably 7:30 to 8:30 or 7 to 8 or whatever. So that's where we analyze our intersections during that peak, most congested period to see the highest impact.
Thank you. So this is just looking at peak traffic times. That's what I was missing.
Correct.
Thank you.
May I speak?
Oh, yes. Mary Lou?
I drove through the neighborhood. It's been a long time. My son's best friend back in kindergarten 40 years ago lived on Clark. It was fun to see the neighborhood has changed a bit. These numbers look like it's low, but quite frankly, from my experience, if you add just 2 more cars, it becomes congested. I was driving through on a Monday, which is garbage day. The garbage cans were there, the garbage man was there, and trying to maneuver all of that was extremely difficult. And the Pueblo break-off that the gate is there. I really wonder how the firemen would ever get into that neighborhood with any more traffic going on at all.
Commissioner
I have a
Pendergrass.
question.
I yield.
Commissioner Trouth.
Thank you. Abe, can you just summarize like what improvements the developer is going to be required to do to the adjacent roadway?
Sure. I looked at it. The fact that based on our manuals, they don't have a significant impact, tagging them with certain improvements, like improving that signal at Clark, I felt like it's a good idea, but we have to be able to prove that the developer has a significant impact based on our study guidelines before we're able to ask them to modify a traffic signal that would cost $200,000 to $300,000. The improvements they are recommending at the moment are contribution of a fair share, which is if the city is spending this much, we'll contribute 11%, which is based on the volume they're adding and based on the frontage they have on the project. I believe it's a roadway improvement on Union, adding a bike lane there. They did recommend red curbing on Clark. I have recommended against it for now. I have said addition of 60 vehicles during a peak period, which is about 1 a minute. While I agree with you that one more vehicle is one more vehicle, technically does not change anything. We have roads like that all around town. We have all of them in Cardiff. We have a lot of those in Old Lucadia. We have many of these in older areas of town that the road is not that wide and people navigate through them. To take away parking capacity just because we're adding 60 vehicles per hour, at the moment is not justified. If fire department wants to overrule this recommendation, that's a different story. I, as a traffic engineer, I said, well, nothing, in my opinion, changes. Additional volume on a road does not make the road unsafe, more unsafe or safer. Volume is pure, is just volume. It's not changing anything with the standards, and so it's not on the traffic engineering recommendation at the moment, unless, again, fire wants to say because of the additional apartment number of units, we want this red curb. That's a different story. And to another reason, because I know parking is a big concern, there was, I think one of the residents mentioned something about eminent domain and the fact that the city wants to take people's yards. The city has the right of way. We are not going for eminent domain. If the city at any point decides to widen the road, it's publicly owned property. It's taking away public privilege because of somebody else's benefit. So if somebody's using that facility, city property, that doesn't make it theirs. It's not eminent domain. We have the land. The city owns the property. We just never widened the road.
Okay, so are you saying the right-of-way could accommodate a wider road?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
But
it
the
just
developer's
means
not
people's driveways would
required?
have to be modified, and their yards would have to become smaller, and poles would have to be moved. It's just $1 million project. It's not simple, but the land is there. The public right of way is there.
And the developer isn't improving the road at all, other than a bike lane?
Again, had the numbers been in a way that we could prove they had significant impact on Clark, we do it all the time. The numbers are not there. Clark is carrying around, I think, 1,200 vehicles or 1,400 vehicles. The capacity of that road is way above 5,000. So with adding an extra, so half of that, let's say 55%, let's say half of that 1,200 trips per day is about 600. By adding an extra 600 trips on Clark, we cannot tag them with significant impact and ask them to spend a 7-digit number to widen the road. It's not feasible. And it would not fly in court. Like, they would say, hey, why, we don't have a significant impact. Why are you dumping your project on us? If this was a, let's say, Costco, the story would have been different. Okay, you're adding 3,000 extra trips on this road, now it triggers. Or if Clark was already carrying 4,000, for example, that extra 600 would have meant different, but it's not carrying that much.
Thank you.
Well, Abe, as I understand it, you're the city traffic engineer, and you're advising the planning commission on that. Does the city traffic commission have any, does the Mobility and Traffic Safety Commission have any leverage to make this better?
We did discuss this last month, and I did check with higher-ups. Unfortunately, not. We do not have any authority to make any changes. We have done something similar to this before, where the commission wrote a letter signed by the chair, blessed by other members of the commission, and it was presented to the planning commission. But that's about it. We don't have any authority to request improvements. We don't have any authority to ask for changes. I mean, the stuff that we're talking about, exact similar questions and topics and information is happening at our planning commission meeting. This is very redundant in my opinion, and I mentioned this last time. I kind of feel our residents attending our meetings, while informative to us and to them, would have a stronger role and more beneficial if it happens, the energy is spent at the planning commission.
Now, next question. After the project is completed, if some of these assumptions should turn out to be incorrect, I guess that's the word, what tools do we have to fix things? Can we go with one-way streets? Can we put in more signals? Can we widen some streets?
I mean, all the issues that we have around town, they all come from more cars on the road and more projects and more development. So like every intersection that we signalize is because we have more cars on the road. And all of these cars are appearing on our roads because of development projects. So the studies are not perfect, and a lot of various reasons things can happen differently from what was originally anticipated. But the city will always have a traffic engineer, will always have funds to fix things if we identify errors and if we identify mistakes. But we cannot tag developers to fix things just because we think things might go wrong. We cannot tag, there are standards. Like the study process is a very standardized process. Like almost every city around does traffic impact analysis very similarly. Interestingly, there is this thing called Santek Traffic Impact Analysis Guideline, which is the San Diego Traffic Engineering Council. Like the city traffic engineers in the county sat together about 10, 12 years ago, came up with a guideline on how traffic studies for development projects should happen, and the method is still being followed. So it's not like I decide how a developer studies, and then the next developer comes in and says, okay, you do it differently this time. So the process, the intersections that are studied, the trip generation, as I said, everything is a very, very standardized format. We cannot easily deviate from how we do things.
Understood.
But to say it's 100% accurate, no. Like when the project is built, somebody goes out with a board and just chalks the number of cars that go out of this. We say 100 if it's 160, because as I mentioned earlier to Commissioner Hansberg, I always pronounce your name wrong. Hansberg, like the burger, like hamburger. Okay, I don't want to say burger and make it bad, but it's like burger, like a burger. Okay, Hansberger. The six trips per dwelling unit comes from hundreds of survey points that were done down the years, and there is like a curve that made, and then there is like the differential models, and there is like a model fit into those dots. So there are projects that are very off. So there might be an apartment complex that's generating 12 trips per unit. There might be another that generates 3 trips per unit. So this 6 is just an average out of the studies that were done during the past 10, 15 years. So we can easily be
does this,
off.
does the plan that's been, the proposal, it's not been adopted by the Planning Commission yet? Does
It hasn't gone there, no.
Does it provide for other means of mobility other than gasoline-powered vehicles, such as bicycles, shuttle buses, and Shanks Mirror?
As mentioned, I did see contribution toward bike lanes on Union in there. Roadway improvement on bike lane on Union.
Does that include pedestrian sidewalks?
There, by roadway improvement, I meant there is also a DG path. Pueblo has one. I think Union doesn't. I think it's also contributing toward a DG path walkway on Union. Maybe I'm naming the road wrong, but I do know there is a DG path. Let me see if I can pull up the study. Applicant to construct a DG path on one side of Union from I-5 to Saxony.
They'll build one.
But again, these would have to go to Planning Commission.
All right, just
Commissioner Pendergrast.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a couple of facts. I do think that there's some value. We talked about this last time, Abe, and maybe we just agree to disagree, but I do think there's value in our role as a liaison between the community and the city council. Allows for our citizens to come up and voice their concerns, and of which we will then consider and make recommendations to the city council. Whether they agree or disagree, that's up to them. A couple of facts I'd like to just clarify. You stated that the capacity of Clark is currently 5,000 ADTs. Is that right?
So capacity is a very, very complex thing. We can't go like a 3-hour meeting just talking about roadway capacities. But in general, traffic engineering, a road that has one lane in each direction is usually accepted to have 10,000 vehicles per day capacity until it fails. Okay. Now, Clark, as mentioned, a lot of times has cars parked on both sides that really doesn't allow for 2 lanes in each direction. Well, 1 lane in each direction, 2 lane total. That's why I assumed only 1 lane and used 5,000. That's a very, very, I guess, back of a napkin ballpark, yeah. But it certainly has a lot more than the current 1,200, 1,400. And you can easily see that. Like whenever you go to Clark, you barely see like congestion, like level of service E or F means like you see back-to-back cars. Like La Costa is 1 lane in each direction and it carries around 15,000. Rancho Santa Fe, 1 lane in each direction carries like 17,000. So those are roads that you consider congested. Level of service goes toward E or F or higher levels of service. But a road like Clark, even with that narrow, like Chesterfield, I think carries around like 8 to 10,000 or something. So the numbers are higher. On roads like Clark, capacity is really not an issue. We have all other facilities like a lack of improvement that are very valid, but vehicular capacity is no issue.
Is there a location on the city website or through your office that can tell them or tell our citizens on each of these streets what the current rating is? So whether it's Pueblo or Union or Clark, so we can have a framework of which to discuss really the capacity. We've gone from 1,200, we're basically doubling the ADTs on the street with the proposed project, right? We're going from our current approximately 1,200 to adding another 1,200 units. So we're our ADT.
50%, since it's 50% goes to Union, 50% goes to Clark. So if the capacity of Clark, let's say it's around 1,200 or 1,400, we're only adding 600. So it's not doubling. It's half of it goes to Union, if you recall.
Okay, so based on your schedule here, of these 1,200 units, some are going, ADTs. Some are going to Clark and some are going to Union.
About half an hour. 55, I think, again, I don't want to miss my, but it's 55, 45. I think 55 is Clark, 45 is Union.
Okay. Next question then, let's see. The city right-of-way on Clark, you mentioned that the city has a right to expand the existing, and of course, that would probably encumber existing driveways and things like that. It's probably on their title policies, it's probably on a survey that you guys have for your house, but is there any place on the city website that identifies the true right-of-way or the true property that's owned by the city on Clark?
I'm not sure if the GIS layer that we have access to is publicly accessible. I have to check on to see if people can go see the right-of-way line.
Right.
But one email, it's less than 1 minute for our staff. So if anybody, I'll look for like an official link if people can see where the actual right-of-way. I think it's a good idea for people to be able to see. But yeah, one email to Amanda, we can easily send the residents an actual aerial that shows where the property line is.
The reason I bring that up is as the Goodson project has progressed through the city, the Goodson development and Levenheim has claimed half of the Rancho Santa Fe Road as part of their property, which then increases the size of their property, which increases the density that they can build by right on that site. So knowing where the city line and where is it probably just another piece of important information for you as the citizens along Clark to know what is your property, what is the city property, what could happen, not that it will, because as Abe said, city probably doesn't have the capital to widen the road, but it's important just as a fact. So we know now that the street has a 5,000 ADT capacity. We're looking at possibly increasing it from 1,200, which is the current count. And speaking of the current count, to validate these numbers, when is the last time the city has actually put a little rubber hose in the street to count the number? Because we've also mentioned by a couple of the other citizens who've come tonight, have talked about ADUs and additional units that have been built. So we're looking at statistics that are probably stale in terms of what they're using here, because we now have ADUs and additional residents on that street. Now, will it double or triple the current count? I don't know, not my skill set, but we certainly have, it sounds like, more people living on the street. So as part of the conversation with the developer, is there a way for the city to verify? I understand the statistical models, regression and all that kind of stuff, but what about just putting a little rubber road and counting the number of cars that are going through to verify? Is that something we can do?
The number that is added to the existing scenario is based on those regression models and those ratios and everything, so there's no way to validate until after effect, which obviously we don't have a option.
How about just getting a
the
traffic
existing
count?
ones,
How about
when
just a traffic count now. Like,
correct,
what's
when the
traffic count on
developer
Clark?
does the report, which is included in the report, they always do a existing plus project scenario to show us their impact. The existing is 99% of the time off of actual counts. So they do lay tubes or they send people out to actually conduct counts. Unless there has been like a project like in La Costa, we had a developer that did these surveys and counts like 3 months before the next project, so they use the same numbers. But 99% of the time, developers and their consultants conduct counts, and their existing plus project scenario is off of actual counts.
So for them, when they do the counts, and then they take, we'll just say they count 1,000 cars, take a random number, then that gets submitted to the city, to the planning department as part of their process of approval, so they can actually see 1,000 cars were counted on June 15th or whatever, and that's part of the package, because how does the city know what to negotiate or discuss with the developer unless they have an actual count?
If I remember correctly, you're talking about by day, you mean the developer?
Well, you just mentioned the developer does the data, and I was wondering where the citizens can find that data count. And
it's in the report.
It's in the report that goes to Planning Commission?
Yes.
Okay, so they should be looking for the Planning Commission report when the developer submits the package for approvals.
Correct, yes. And it has the date and time and everything. It even has like the exact day that the data was collected.
And your codes require them to count at specific times of the day, whether it's morning or evening or afternoon?
Correct.
All right, then the last question I had, thank you for your time, everybody, is the ingress and egress numbers that you show here, of 8% and 9%, I understand, are based on calculations in the manuals. So 1,194 calcs, ADTs, that's only 17% of the calcs. When are the other 83% of the cars moving around? If it's not between 7 and 8 in the morning and I guess 5 and 6 p.m., the other 83% is somewhere between 9 and 4?
I mean, the distribution is available. I don't know how it's distributed. I would assume it gradually goes down. If I wanted to guess, I'd say if 7 to 8 is 8, 8 to 9 is probably 7, 9 to 10 is 6.
Okay.
Gradually goes down around noon. Probably there is another peak of about 7. If morning is 8% and evening is 9, probably noon is 7%. Usually there is like a big peak during AM and PM peak, and there's like a smaller peak around noon. So the distribution is very easily.
Well, I'm just saying, practically speaking, given most of the traffic's going to be in the morning and most of the traffic is coming home at night. So I really find it kind of puzzling that the statistics, and again, I'm not an engineer, but only 9% in the evening and 8% in the morning, and the other 85% is not when people are at work. So it seems like these numbers should be more like 25% in the morning and 25% at night, which is really causing the problem, not lunchtime when there's nobody home because they're all at work. So I have a hard time thinking it's going to be 8, 8, 8, 8, 8 ratably all the way through distribution during the day, because that just doesn't seem practical. I understand these are the books,
Yeah.
the manuals, but you just described 8, 7, 5, 6. I'm like, wait, no one's there during the day. They're all at work. They all went out between 7 and 8, and that seems to be the problem, is getting in and getting out.
So the 25 you mentioned is not, I would say, wrong. It's that the traffic engineering peak period is usually 2 hours, 2.5 hours. Usually in our evaluations, we usually assume people leave around, like the window, like if you check with your neighbors, not everybody uses the same. The peak period is the 1 hour that we have to pick to go do the analysis to say, okay, the intersection is a level of service D or B or C. We have to pick a 1 hour. But that peak that in our minds we say, oh, it's a big number, it can be 9%, that's usually about 2 hours, 2.5 hours, where people leave around 6 to 8, 6 to 8:30, depending on their business, their job. So that's why it becomes the same 25, 30%, but in a longer window. But for modeling purposes, to say intersection, okay, what's your impact at this signal? We have to pick the peak 1 hour. That's like if you check the previous hour before this 8% peak period, it's probably 7.7%.
Commissioner?
I have another question.
Yes, yes, I was going to say, any other questions?
So what off-site improvements does the developer have to provide for this project?
That was the extent of it, the ones I mentioned, improving Union and adding the, contributing toward the addition of the DG path, the road improvement and the bike lane there, the red curbing, which I have not accepted yet. A few minor, there isn't much offsite improvement. I said there should be a direct nexus between the impact of the project and the improvement, which is not there based on the. Again, the fact that we don't have a very, very good improved situation does not mean they have a significant impact there. The nexus is tough to find. The number is not that big.
Commissioner Hansberger.
I just had one more follow-up. So because it seems like the impact or what the developer is going to be held accountable for is so based on the current traffic count, right? And then how that just will be impacted by the new units. Is there a way that the community could get a hold of that packet that the developer submitted just to see when were those numbers counted? Because I know we had a similar incident where the numbers were counted during COVID and they were just swayed because nobody was leaving their house, right? So it would I just would to feel comfortable with the numbers, because I feel like we keep coming back to this. Is there a way to see the data, the actual data that the developer used, and how do we get that? Do we email? Can we email
Absolutely.
Amanda or
So like any other public record, it's accessible to anybody. The one I have right now is in draft form, so it's not a public record. If you contact the city clerk's office, there is a page on the city website called Public Records Request, PRR. There is a Public Records Act that allows anybody to request any public document. So you just put a one-liner in there. I'm asking for the traffic study for this development project. And the clerk has, I believe, 10 days or 7, what is it, 7 or 10? 10 days to respond back and send you the PDF. But at the moment, I'm not sure if it's actually released. If it's in draft form, we cannot, so I don't want people to send Amanda emails. So the proper path is, because even if somebody contacts Amanda and asks for a document that is ready to be released, she still asks them to submit an official PRR.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners? No. I have a couple comments. I understand this statistical thing, and you have to have something to start with. I personally am having a hard time, accepting that there's not going to be a major impact on all these developments. And as Abe mentioned, the big difference is the amount of automobiles, and there's just going to be more automobiles in the future and more people in the future. I don't think there's an easy answer to this. I don't think the city is going to be widening Clark Street anytime soon to make sidewalks or things like that. I don't know what the solution is. I take a look at the pictures. I've ridden my bicycle around that area, and I know the impact. It's one lane in so many different places. I just don't see how it can ever improve. And I don't know what the city can do to improve these situations. I really don't. I don't know what the options are. But as far as our commission goes, we can share our feelings with the city council, planning commission, or what have you, as a commission, and I'm more than happy to do that. But beyond that, there's really very little that we, as a commission, can do except sympathize. Well, speaking for myself, sympathize for the position. You got to start somewhere, and the statistics are the starting point. And I wish we could go beyond that. I don't know if any studies have been done about turning the streets one-way streets. I know that that's real controversial also, but it's a tough position. There's really no action that we have to take tonight other than to listen to people and ask questions and become a little more educated ourselves on this matter. So
I do think we have the opportunity to collectively write a letter, though, and I'd like to see us do that.
Yeah. And I would be happy to sign it along with everybody else. Okay. Any other questions on this item? Nope. Thank you, Abe, for all of that. You'd have to spend a lot of time educating us. I appreciate that. Nothing is as simple as it appears to be. Okay. All right, so number 2 is Manchester Avenue and San Elijo Avenue crosswalk.
Yes, Chair, thank you. I'll try to go quicker. We're already at the 90th minute, and we have almost a full agenda left. You're familiar, Manchester coming, it's one of those weird intersections. Manchester coming down, and from here becomes Manchester. We have a few of these roads, these type of roads in the city. San Elijo stops here. So we looked at this in depth. I went out there 2-3 times. Ian went out there a few times. We looked at this about the options. So there are a few major problems. One problem is this gore area, this corner here, that there is a big slope change. As you can see, if you're familiar with the area, there is a relatively steep grade here, and then the sidewalk, the concrete, as you can see here. Let me see if I have the map that I can open. So the sidewalk stops before you get to the go area, so there is nothing really here. If we are improving this corner, we have to take care of the fire hydrant here, the sign, the concrete has to continue. This go area has to be improved. We will need ramps. We have two options. One option is to cross right here, and one option is to create the ramp and cross our pedestrians to this area and then cross them at this location. So advantages and disadvantages with both scenarios. This scenario, there's only one crossing, so less conflict, obviously. This scenario where there are two crossing, you would have to cross here, so you're adding an extra conflict. It is a stop-controlled intersection, so it is fair to assume vehicles are familiar and they will stop, so it's not really a very major safety concern, the additional crossing. But coming down Manchester here, because of the grade and the curve, that the bend that happens in the end, there's always a chance that the driver might miss a pedestrian until the very last second. So that can be a concern. The second major difference is if you cross pedestrians here on the south leg, you'll have less side improvements required compared to crossing them there. As you can see, it's very, very narrow in this area. And we checked with our CIP folks. We probably need a very, very expensive wall here, which would easily take the project again to a 7-digit super costly project. We would need ADA ramps on both sides, signage, modified striping. So what is this? Oh, this looks, so the stairs are where that white SUV is. So it needs a lot of edge enhancement. So we have a raised manhole here. This itself is a lot of work to flatten out, and because this will end up in whatever walkway we come up with. I mean, this looks very simple, but touching this by itself is a 2 to 3 month work to figure out with different agencies who are, involved in modifying this and rebuilding it and then paving. So the two scenarios that I mentioned, one scenario is this, as I mentioned, so extending the concrete sidewalk that stops further up on Manchester all the way to the intersection, ramp, modifying striping, removing the stop, removing the bar, removing the double yellow a little bit, adding continental, receiving end, we need a standard ADA ramp, and then the edge of the road, as was discussed earlier. What is it? Okay. So the edge of the road, we need a wall, and it needs a lot of widening work. The second scenario, which is a little easier, but still, so we need the same ramp, concrete, ADA ramp, bring people to this corner. This area is easier to build a ramp because it's not raised. It just tells removing a portion of the berm existing, add another crossing, and a little bit of a smaller, I guess this is about half the size of edge of the road improvement. So we are working on cost estimate for both of the scenarios. One option that can be a low-hanging fruit is, we're also evaluating that, is not to, let me go back to the street view, not to touch this edge as much as we like to, but to try to play with the surface that we have here. Maybe after the K-rail finishes, we can shift a little bit to the east and open up enough space on the west side to, because as long as we have around 3.5, 4 feet of walkable area, it is good enough to be technically accepted as a walkway. The lane is already narrow, but we do have this room here on the east side that's easier to kind of add to if we want to add an extra foot of pavement. So that's another option that we're looking at that I don't yet have. There are a lot of unknowns with that. Is it our right of way? Is it doable to widen the road and then transition? We would have to move these K-rails. So technically moving the road 1 foot or 2 feet to the east and then play with the transition here. That way we won't need to build a walkway and a wall here and just widen this edge of the road 2, 3, 4 feet. Or maybe we can take 1 foot from here without doing anything. I don't know what that is. But that being said, our work plan, as you know, for the current fiscal year, this is not included. We are adding this to our next fiscal year's work plan with cost estimates to see how, during our strategic meetings, council wants to look at it and how high priority it is considered by council to be funded. Depending on the scenario, obviously, the costs will be very different. To be honest, the first 2 scenarios that involves building a wall and removing all the plants there and cleaning this up, it's, yeah, I hate to say I don't see it happening, but this pole would have to be relocated. There's just a lot. I mean, nothing, as you said, is simple as it looks. Like, to just move this pole, it takes 6 months and $200,000.
Can I make a comment? Chair? So thank you, Abe, for your assessment, although it's a little pessimistic. And I know this item's just billed as a crosswalk, but I view that as kind of just a Band-Aid to a more comprehensive, I'd like to see a more comprehensive solution, because the entire access from the Cardiff area is poor, even if you had that crosswalk there. And even if you had a perfect sidewalk from that crosswalk to the lagoon, it still doesn't improve a lot of access for most of Cardiff. Now, within walking distance of the collective, Santa Lyle Lagoon, there are thousands of residents within walking distance, within a mile, but they can't access it easily. It seems incongruous to require them to drive a car to enjoy nature, a polluting car to enjoy nature. So I really would like to see something, a study to suggest a more comprehensive solution that adds easier access from those hundreds of homes to the lagoon. Now I know also the section of Santa Lyle that's parallel to railroad tracks and above the S-curve, that has one of the best views in Cardiff, but it is really inconvenient to access by foot or by bicycle. Even in a car, there's only a few parking spaces. I'm not even sure they're legal parking spaces at the corner, but we really ought to take advantage of that. Even if there's just a sidewalk there, people could enjoy that view a lot more. But I'd like to see that entire area much more easily accessible to non-car traffic. I'm not saying it's feasible, because I'm not a traffic engineer, and I know it will probably cost a lot, but I'd like to see a pie-in-the-sky idea of what would be perfect if we had a magic wand, could invoke it tomorrow. And that gives us a goal to aim for, at least. So.
The traffic team does not handle our sidewalk project. Our concrete work is done by like asphalt work, pavement work, and sidewalks are handled by our CIP team. I'm trying to find what the best approach is. Like, if we add this to the log and say traffic engineering evaluate, I guess we can do a traffic study to find out what kind of a volume we're looking at or what kind of a positive impact creating such a connection would have. But to create a CIP project that would improve pedestrian access in Cardiff area to get to the nature center from all of Cardiff, that's something I would have to talk to our city engineer to see what our options are. I really, because there's no budget, there's no sidewalk building budget in the whole department.
Understand. I think I've
Yeah.
kind of enlarged the problem from the crosswalk to something more comprehensive. And at this point, I maybe should just be asking for a study of what would be ideal. And that may have to be interagency. I don't really know what the administration arrangements are. But that would be my suggestion.
So to study
What would be perfect?
if this connection,
If we could start anew, or if we had a unlimited budget, what would we do to improve non-car access to the lagoon? Because the improvements that have been made to the Nature Collective are really fantastic. It really is a jewel, but that jewel is not accessible unless you drive a car now. But again, I said that's incongruent with the idea of enjoying nature.
This is Commissioner Von Neumann here.
Yeah.
Abe, is it perhaps better for us to actually ask a CIP person to come to our meeting so we can ask them these kind of questions? Because I understand you're a traffic engineer, and this is a very big development type of question, I think, that Commissioner Wang is talking about, like creating an overall plan. Am I correct? That you're talking about a comprehensive overall plan, how to improve access to this area, correct? And it's not just a traffic thing. Am I hearing you correctly?
Yes, correct. Now, by the way, I'm Commissioner Wong.
So I think it's tough for the traffic department, traffic engineers. They have a very limited role. That's just, the traffic aspect of it, not the
I understand,
overall
but
development.
I'm saying, if it takes more than just traffic, I know Abe does a wonderful job and he does traffic very well, but you may be correct that it does require other agencies involved. I'm not sure CIP is the right agency because they're more concerned with
Who is it?
spending money.
Who in the city?
what Commissioner Wang described to me is more of a active transportation planning thing, where they're drafting these plans for cities. That's where they look at, okay, we have these trip generators, we have these attractions, we want to create access for our pedestrian and our bicyclists to these facilities without their cars, so let's create projects. So we have 66 bike projects in our ATP and around 9 major sidewalk projects introduced in our ATP. Now, if this is one of them, if there is anything in Cardiff, I don't know off the top of my head. But as you know, the projects on ATP are not prioritized. Our Development Services Department recently hired a consultant who is evaluating those projects that were introduced in the ATP and prioritizing them. And then the next step would be funding, which doesn't exist at the moment. So there's no pot that says tackle 3 projects out of ATP every year. One sidewalk project, 3 bike projects. So there's no such a active transportation improvement. There are separate funds that we tap into to do these different projects. Like out of those 66 bike projects on the ATP, we during the past 3-4 years have done 20, 30 of them. The low-hanging fruits, the ones that we could design in-house, not to make it $3 million project, but the ones that were like 20,000, 15,000, 30,000, the ones that we could design and go out and quickly implement. We have done many of those, many of the sharrows, many of the bike lanes, many of the traffic calming projects. A lot of the projects on there are done, but something that, to the level that, if I understand correctly, you have in mind, would be one of those major pedestrian or active transportation improvement projects in Cardiff. Can be by itself a study that a consultant can do, create lines on the map. Okay, these are the lines, these are the streets that you have to improve the sidewalks on or create walkways on, and this is the path to connect to major attractions, to the view, to the nature center, to the downtown Encinitas, to Cornish Park, to these different, to library, to create these paths on that plan and then give it to the city to prioritize and start thinking about funding. That's certainly beyond my capacity.
Right.
As I understand, I think you've assessed what I've asked for correctly. It may be bigger than what we can solve here, but as I said, it may be just a dream list type of thing we can do. But I think if you I know you evaluate benefit cost ratios, but I suspect that if you could measure the benefit cost ratio of easy access to the lagoon, it'd benefit thousands of residents who could walk there easily. Now, I know benefit cost ratio is in terms of property damage and lives lost, and there may not be that much there, but in terms of enjoyment of nature and our environment, I think that'd be high. So, yes, it's hard to quantify.
One other avenue that I see this can be approached is our mobility element consultant is actively working on classifying our roads and creating cross sections. These cross sections, after the mobility element is finalized, would define how our roads will look like in the future. So a development comes in and wants to build a project, we will tell them, okay, your standard cross section shows you have 2 sidewalks, 2 bike lanes, parking, 3 lanes, for example. That's what you're supposed to build. So if they anticipate these improvements needed in certain areas of town, they can incorporate these needs into the standard cross sections of those roads. So some of the roads in Cardiff can have a different cross section where the cross section has sidewalks, and some of the roads might not have a cross section that has the sidewalks. They can incorporate the vision of the active transportation plan or other visions that were not seen in the active transportation plan into these cross sections that they're defining for different roads of the city. That is an avenue that I think.
What I'm having trouble quantifying is how much is enjoyment in nature worth? I mean, we can obviously survive without it. Like that view over on San Elijo over the ocean, that is a great view. Like I said, the best view in Cardiff. But what's that worth? You know, if 100 more people can view it easily, is that worth something or not?
I think, if I can interject here, I think we've kind of gotten off of this intersection a little bit and gone into some philosophical things also. I think we need to try to address this or wrap this up. But I understand what you're talking about, Commissioner Wang. But as far as this intersection now, with all the people who have come and talked to us and written to us, what can be done quickly, if that's at all possible, to improve safety for pedestrians at this intersection? What can be done?
As mentioned, I'll do a evaluation of costs on all the 3 scenarios, the 2 that are here and the one that I think might be feasible, the one without the wall. And I'll take whichever one commission recommends to council with our work plan. And I say, hey, this is if commission says out of the 2 scenarios that involve wall and widening and cleaning up the west side, we like this one better, we'll work on that. And the last one, obviously, I think it's good to keep it in the game, the one that's more low-hanging fruit type, smaller project that's more feasible. I don't know if I have the room for it. If it gets to, if my calculations show there is enough width on the west without removing the pole and removing all these and building a wall, we can achieve our goal. I think that would be our best bet. If you want something to happen, that would be the best bet. If you want to go for the Cadillac version, I guess, would be either crossing here, opening up all the way on the west to the stairs, or crossing here, improving this corner here, and then crossing here, and then do a little bit less improvements on this side.
I have one question. If you can show that triangle a little more. Okay, what if you crossed over to that triangle and you walked down that triangle and then crossed farther down the road, not necessarily at the intersection?
I was going to ask who owns that.
Well, the improvement on the west side required would be way less, but the problem is you'll be mid-block crossing. You're not crossing at a stop anymore.
All right, so you put in a mid-block crossing, a raised crosswalk with flashing beacons.
On a curve?
No, it's not a curve there, it's straight.
I mean, I'm sure you're familiar more than me with Manchester in that area.
I cross there often. I have to say,
Okay,
I cross there
it was
often.
just a suggestion.
And I did that, exactly what you said, just last week with my sister, and that was dangerous. I really like what Abe has suggested what you just said, was pull the traffic over and do not the Cadillac version, your cheaper version. In a neighborhood in Lucadia, we deal with this all the time. So, and we get no improvements. So this here, you have a metered or a stopped intersection. You are crossing to a shoulder and walking a few hundred feet to stairs to access the lagoon. I really like what you suggested, Abe. I think it makes it safer, and it seems more cost-effective, and definitely that it would probably happen. I think trying to move the pole and everything else you were just showing, seems like that's really going to be far away. So I like what you suggested, and I think it's a good idea. I also just wanted to touch on access to this lagoon. I actually think the access is amazing. I run through Cardiff all the time and can access at multiple points the stairs that were put in, so thank you to the Lagoon Conservancy. There's also the parking right down at the other end, and with the new rail poke through in Cardiff, you can also access all of these trails in the lagoon from Cardiff Seaside. And I think, Abe, weren't you just saying that there's going to be didn't you get a grant to put a crosswalk across from Cardiff Seaside to that lagoon entrance there as well? Is that on the books as well, or no?
Is it Solana Beach?
In Solana Beach. Aren't we doing it in conjunction with Solana Beach and to access the trails on the other side?
So I guess we're a little bit
I believe that's in our
sidetracked. But
follow-up log.
Okay,
the grant is from the State Beach to Solana Beach on the west side. It's only a sidewalk and a retaining wall. It does not include a crossing. There are conversations going on between us and Solana Beach to see how a crossing to the trail is feasible.
And that is on our follow-up log. So we can talk about that then. Yeah.
I have a quick.
Okay.
Abe, on this picture, any idea who owns that dirt triangle? Is that city right-of-way, or is that private property?
I am not aware. I didn't check.
All right, as you head eastbound, so this same video or the same photo, when you get down to the retaining wall or whatever that is called in
K-rail?
parlance, the K-rail. Any idea? I'm thinking of, to your point about moving the road so that we can actually have access along the south side without having to build a wall. So I'm sure there's some rules regarding how wide the sidewalk needs to be before you have to put a retaining wall based on the slope on the other side, right? So
Correct.
you're working with some of these restrictions. So regarding those restrictions, if we just shift the road to the north up against the K-rail, does this K-rail stay, or is this part of the, do you know if it's part of the freeway overpass construction project? So in other words, will this go away at any time?
I feel, you've been a resident, I've been here with the city close to 4 years now. These has always been there. I think this is for the failure of the slope. I don't
Okay.
think these are for
It's not going
Yeah.
anywhere? All right. So I'm just thinking if we could scoot that K-rail in a little bit, that gives you some room on the south
Yeah, that's what I
side.
want to play with. I want to see how much I can squeeze and shift things and
Right.
draw some lines on the ground and see how it lines up, and maybe move this berm maybe by 1 foot because we definitely own more than this berm, because these signs are city signs. So they are in our property, but how much of this triangle we own up until when where I don't know. But
I'm
again,
sure
to
you
put
own all
lines.
That used to be a high-speed, right turn with no stop
So
sign.
it's the cities then, okay.
Okay, so Abe, you'll come up with a couple of different options then.
Yeah, I will put it, this is on our radar, and I already talked to our city engineer. We will put it in our next fiscal year's work plan, I guess with different options for council to see what kind of decision they want to make.
So is there anything that can be done now? Without, we're taking a look at it, year or 2 years. What can be done now to make it safer for pedestrians to navigate this intersection? How do we slow down cars? And we don't have to get into a big discussion at this second, but that's the big question. What can be done now? Or what can be done quick build? Can there be anything done here? And the two options that you're going to come up with require a lot of time and energy, and I greatly appreciate that. But that we're talking at least a year away. So
A year is kind of quick build in city life, isn't it?
but huh?
That's great, a year.
A year, yeah, that would be great. But
No, I mean,
it is
second-
an issue now. So
The wall scenario, I agree, is, I guess, a big undertaking without it currently being funded or designed. I mean, it involves a lot of moving pieces. But the other one, if I get to a point where I can present something feasible to council, I think that one is a good project. That one's doable, and we certainly can put it in our list of items for next fiscal year, which starts in July. So, I mean, it's already a stop-controlled intersection. I mean, not that many walks during the evening or night, I guess, there. So, I mean, we have done some lighted stop signs recently, but I don't really see much benefit there, especially for the one going southbound. There are some houses that would be impacted by the light. Maybe the northbound one will not impact anybody if we make it a
Or a flashing beacon for a
berms
crosswalk.
on the pavement or something to slow traffic down when they're going through the intersection. I don't know. There must be some options.
beacons. We cannot mix them with the stop signs. They are not legal. We
Yeah, I would
cannot
like to
have a
think there's
flashing
some
beacon.
options to help.
Let me think more. Let me
Appreciate
see.
it.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about all this time. I'm not doing a good job of time management.
Your first meeting as a chair is going to be a record.
Keep going.
Well, let's see if we can get through item 3 through 10 quickly.
Faster. Manchester Avenue restriping between I-5 and Tennis Club. This has been on our log, I think, and on our radar. So OMWD has come forward with a project there. And as always, we've asked them to allow us the opportunity to modify the striping with their project. I guess, unfortunately, they're only tearing up a small piece of the road, so we don't get to ask them to do the whole road for us. But we are in conversation to possibly find a agreement that would allow us to use the funds that they were supposed to spend to fix the road to basically improve the whole El Camino, the whole Manchester in that area up to El Camino. So east of the freeway all the way up to the Manchester. It's another one of those weird intersections. So Manchester goes up, and then at the signal turns right, becomes Manchester again. So the OMWD project goes further north of that. The tennis club is about, I want to say, quarter mile north of that signal. So they have a project all the way there. It's mainly eastbound, and well, it becomes northbound later. So that they're working on the outer area of the northbound, but we want to come to some sort of an agreement to improve the whole Manchester, both directions in that area. Traffic calming, bike lanes, buffers. Bike lanes are there, but they're not that wide and that good. So we're planning on creating a project from this OMWD job there. Glen Arbor speed cushions. We got some comments from public. There were some miscalculations on our side. There are 2 speed cushions that were done there. Both of them are being modified. We are adding additional speed cushion modules, one in the 2-way left turn lane, another one in the parking area, so people cannot meander, go around the cushions that were built there.
So they're going to go all the way across the street?
Hopefully they won't do that.
You know they will.
The opposing side, you mean?
The cushions should go all the way across Willow Spring.
Oh. The Glen Arbor ones, I thought you were talking about the...
There's an island, like there's one
Correct.
cushion with 2 bollards on each side of the bike lane.
The bollards are going removed. They're taken off. They're being taken off, if not already. Yeah.
The bollards are going to be taken off.
Yes.
But the cushion is still going to be there?
And it will be added on the parking side, and then on the two-way left turn lane sign, there will be additional cushion added.
Okay.
Yeah, the bollards were meant to prevent cars from going around them, but then we noticed that they have this disadvantage for the bikes, so we're removing them.
And cars are going to the left of the bollard as they're going south on Glen Arbor. They're avoiding everything and going into the center lane toward Willow Spring there.
On the center lane, we're also adding a cushion. St. John access, so this was another one of the items that was on our log on Encinitas Boulevard. So we went out there, evaluated, talked to school. Where is St. John? So what we found out, I don't know how, let me zoom in a little bit. So during pickup drop-off time, a very long line appears on eastbound Encinitas. This is Encinitas Boulevard. This one is Ballure on the right side of the screen. And this is the St. John access, and this is the parking area. So a very long line forms here, and then a snake-shaped spiral forms inside the parking lot where people do their pickup drop-offs. And this long queue blocks the bike lane all the way to a couple hundred feet west of this intersection. And it's not necessarily their fault because they want to pick up their kids and there is no movement happening on the driveway, and the parking doesn't. Although the school does a good job, the church, I guess, does a good job of creating this spiral here to maximize the use of the land, to create more queuing space, but it's still not enough. One option that we're looking at to eliminate this is we have a very good amount of right-of-way here, and the pavement width is a lot. The two-way left turn lane is very wide. The lanes are pretty wide. We haven't had a new project here recently. This was repaved just before I start, so I'm anxiously, I guess, waiting for this road to be repaved to do a lot of new things on Encinitas Boulevard here. But the lanes can be narrowed. We just added this second buffer, as you can see, with our public work project. This is a 3-lined buffer. Because we didn't have a repaving job, we just asked our public work to add a third line here to narrow the outer lane. But the width is a lot. You can see if the outer lane is 10.5 or 11, you can imagine how wide the two-way left turn lane is. It's about 20 or something. So we have the room. We were thinking with the repaving, or if there is any kind of opportunity that rises up here, we can maybe create a right turn pocket into the school so that the bike lanes can stay into their own bike lane, and then there is a relatively long right turn pocket that allows access to the school. That way we can keep the bike lane out of the conflict. Another situation that fortunately we really, out of the 2 hours we spent there, didn't see happen more than once was people coming out turning left here. So one illegal left turn is this, another one is people turning right and then not waiting to get to the intersection and then just turning left immediately. I think I only saw one car out of the 200 that I noticed that day, and we weren't wearing any city vests or anything, so they weren't afraid of us, I guess. So nobody was really doing it, but it is a concern. Somebody told me from the school that at some point there were bollards there, but they were removed. Now, I don't know why they were removed. I think even for that one car who would do that, the bollard can be preventive, but they're not there. So that's something we can think about. The correct maneuver is to turn right, then shift one lane, and then get into the left turn pocket and make a U, which is not the most convenient. More inconvenient than that is westbound in the morning, they come all the way here, they have to cross this crosshatch stripe median, get into the two-way left turn lane, and then make a U from the two-way left turn lane and then go to the school, which, as you can see, the yellow line is very weird and very inconvenient. Not unsafe necessarily. The two-way left turn lane can work easily as a left turn pocket, but then making a U on Encinitas Boulevard in that area is not, I guess, the most, as I said, I guess inconvenient is the best word. So one idea I had, obviously we need to talk to a school, is a signal here that can benefit parents a lot during the day. It won't impose that much delay to Encinitas through movement because it can't rest on green unless somebody puts a call on the signal out of the church. Otherwise, this just is business as usual, vehicle through movement continuously. During the school pickup drop-off periods, we can benefit from the left turn pocket into the school, will have its own left turn arrow. Going out, Encinitas will stop and cars will turn left and right. But the price tag on this is about $250 to $300. And that's something that there are options. We can talk to the school, see if they're willing to fund this. The fact that this is only benefiting the school, I guess, not really the city residents. Or if it's going to be a joint project between the city and the church. Again, this is something, these are just ideas at the moment.
So Abe, have you considered asking the queue to move to Belor, use that entrance for queuing, and then having this driveway just being an exit? Because that driveway is much longer.
Correct, but apparently they don't have enough capacity there due to the mismatch there is between, well, not mismatch, unfortunately, in this case, synchronized bell is considered a mismatch. They have a synchronized bell with Oakcrest, and they're doing half and half. Apparently, they're sending a few classes to the blue entrance, and they're sending a few classes to this entrance. They're using both of them, but they're saying Blue doesn't have enough capacity for us because of the Oakcrest volume.
It's just that driveway from Belor is probably as long as this queue that you're talking about that goes down the hill.
Correct, but it backs up, goes toward the fire station, and
I don't know what he's talking about.
I see.
yeah, because there's a right turn.
Question, have you thought about asking St. John's to start providing busing for their children?
We have not. I'm not sure if we have any authority, it can be, I guess, a suggestion, but they're not even with the school district, right?
No, they're a private
They're
school,
private,
and lots
yeah.
of private schools provide busing for their children, and if it's going to cost them $300,000 to have to do all kinds of things to make this happen, they really need to provide busing for their students.
Well, it's not necessarily gonna cost them because we can't condition them now.
Oh, that's
They already they have to accept to. So, yeah, I would say if they don't want to play ball, but it's for the safety of their kids and their parents. So I guess.
Kids would be a lot safer in a school bus than they are in this situation.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Yeah, I guess I can certainly send, because I wanted to meet with I don't know if they have a principal or if I don't know about the positions at a church, but I can talk to whoever is in charge to find out how they're willing to work with us to make things better. But we don't have any kind of teeth to our recommendation. There's no,
School
at this point,
buses
it's
are
just
a
a
very
recommendation.
efficient way of getting people from here to there. They all go to the same place at the same time.
Yeah, I don't know how their kids are spread around town, where they're coming from, how easy it is to schedule. I don't know, but yeah, we looked at it. I will continue the conversation with the church. We have some ideas. I guess the bollards can be done, but it was very, very limited. There are fortunately not that many accidents on record. I think there was only one or something. I looked at it. There's really not much that has happened, but I definitely revisit this when Encinitas Boulevard is going to be restriped. We will do it differently.
Abe, there's also another school on the other side of the street, farther down, that residents were saying that people are, crossing 4 lanes of traffic with, picking up their kids and everything. And so I think when you're looking at that whole section, you have to actually go down farther to that other school. I forget the name of that school. Rhodes School. They have the same. They have some of the same behavior where cars are, crossing and doing U-turns and everything. So maybe put a wall down the middle of the road so nobody can U-turn across it.
A
Put in
median.
some trees.
A median.
Yeah, a median
Yeah.
or something like that.
One other suggestion, Abe, simple.
But anyway.
Is just to stagger the start. If they're syncing with Oakcrest, I'm not a brain surgeon, but if they're syncing with Oakcrest,
stagger it by 15 minutes, and maybe the Belor interchange or the Belor entrance would be more efficient to take some of their own load off, but I'm sure they considered it. But
Yeah, apparently, I did check. Apparently, they had this coordination, and for some reason, well, the church was blaming the school. They said last year they changed their schedule to match ours. We were different. Apparently, there was like a 30-minute difference, but I don't know how it happened. Unfortunately, we don't have any authority over either of these two entities, so we can't just ask. Can you say, hey, guys, can you please take a look into changing your bus schedule?
Well, thank you for keeping that in mind as we're looking at Encinitas Boulevard.
Commissioner Johnson here. Related to the mission of mobility, we ought to encourage all the schools to institute busing. If gasoline hits $20 a gallon, I think they'll do that themselves.
Yeah, I'd say maybe. This is California. I don't think $20 would do much.
Okay.
Item number 6, South 101 cycle track. This is my standard monthly update. So the design is, I guess, at 90%. We will be taking this to council for design immunity and for going to Caltrans to get our construction money very soon. Not much has changed from the version that the commission reviewed 3 months ago, I guess, and council approved at that point. We're just tweaking the design and adding all the bells and whistles to the design. It will, I said, it will go to council next month for design immunity, and then we'll send it to Caltrans to be blessed and green lighted for construction.
And just to remind everybody, that's the section of South Coast Highway between Swami's essentially and Chesterfield, correct?
Correct. And with the direction of council, we added a piece between K Street and Swami's to it.
Good, thank you.
Vulcan Avenue restriping and La Costa 7 and 8. Those two, we had a hard time finding contractors. We finally have a contractor on board that is going to build them for us very soon. So I anticipate, I believe one of them is scheduled for later this month. The other one is early April. But both of them are happening, Vulcan restriping and La Costa walkway.
Yay.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Can you remind me exactly where the La Costa Avenue walkway is? Can you just drop a pin on a Google map really quick?
Yes.
Is that, I just was trying to make sure, is that the one that's going across the bridge or?
It's from the bridge to Vulcan.
From the bridge to Vulcan. So then, I think I sent.
So it starts from this corner,
Yeah.
improving this area all the way to the narrow path that we have on the bridge. So it improves this area between the edge of the crosswalk and the edge of the bridge.
Okay,
And then the Vulcan project is all the striping and the 3 race crossings and the,
Yes,
all
but
the
if
good
we
stuff.
can, and that is, can you go back to that intersection though, right there? What are we doing, I shouldn't say we, I apologize.
No worries.
What is happening on that corner right there? Yeah, right where your mouse was.
So,
Just that, yeah.
with the Vulcan restriping project, we're shifting the lanes to the east.
Okay.
And we're opening this area so it will not be this narrow. We're also in conversation with our Public Works Department to see how we can clean up this area a little bit.
Right,
to
because
open
that's
up
our
space.
path. Yeah, that's our
Correct.
path to the beach, which is actually much, much narrower and on a tighter curve than the Manchester one. Just, I mean, the one on Manchester looks like a fabulous path.
Yeah,
So,
you'd take that, wouldn't
so
you?
we would take that right there in Vulcan. Okay, so, sorry, you were saying you're looking at that and that's going to get widened with the Vulcan Avenue restriping?
Not physically widened, but when the lanes move to the east, it will open up a little bit more space on the west side.
Am I still going to have to walk in the road? That's my question.
So there is some space on dirt, I guess. Like this space is
No,
there.
up a little bit, closer to the intersection.
Correct. In that
That's where I
area.
have to walk in the road.
Yeah, this area, the fence relocation, we started this conversation, I think, with the property owner. I think this is the city's. This doesn't belong to the resident. So
And that's not the city's, because they built that when they'd had a party.
He means it's the city's property.
Oh, it's the city's property,
The
yes.
right of way, I think it is, yes. So I feel like our code enforcement was in conversation with the property owner a few months ago. I got to check with our code team to see what the status of this is. there has been conversations, but we are working on improving this edge. So you should see something pretty soon. So this whole area until Andrew, where we're adding the first race crossing. So the first race crossing is here on Andrew. So people will be coming all the way. So the area on Vulcan south of Andrew, the opening of a space is on the east side. So the walkway is on the east. Here we have a race crossing, and then we're sending people all the way to the west, and then the path will be here all the way to the signal, to the stop sign. But how much improvement we can make happen here, that's...
Abe, can I
Make
ask
it
you?
just as good as what you've got on Manchester, and I'll be happy.
Yeah. Can I ask you to just follow up with code enforcement about that fence? Is that something you guys can do? Because neighbors have put in multiple concerns and I guess code enforcement violations, I guess that's what you call it, with the city. I mean, this has been going on for at least 2 years now and nothing has happened. So can you?
Let me look at it, yeah.
Can you look and
If
see?
it's our right of way, we have to take care of it.
Yeah, especially with the restriping coming, and again, it's just, we have not even, 6 inches of dirt there. We have nothing, so, and all we're getting is a narrow little walkway, but we would love that to equate to what's over there on Manchester.
Sure.
Thank you.
Grant updates, grants projects are going forward. We're applying for getting our construction money for 3 of our grants this month. The street lighting conversion, the 4 signal upgrades, and our Z crossing, they're all ready to be submitted to Caltrans for construction money.
Yay.
Not much on other minor signing striping projects in the city. Yeah, 6 is the
Okay.
approval of
I have a
plans.
question.
Yes.
Okay, so Abe, you were saying that walkways they're typically CIP projects, correct?
Sidewalks, yes.
Yeah, okay, so how did we get this walkway in? I'm just curious.
A sidewalk, if we want to build an actual sidewalk,
Yeah.
that would be a CIP project that has to be added to the CIP team's work plan and then funded by council.
But we are getting us a walkway on La Costa Avenue that you just,
That's not a concrete, that's just a DG path. That's just improving the edge of the road by adding
okay.
decomposed granite. It's
So if it's not paved, if it's DG, then you can do it? And if it's concrete, then it has to be a CIP project?
correct. It becomes a major asset to the city, that it becomes a capital improvement per se. Yeah, usually when we open up like side of the road, like the Vulcan thing, like we're adding 4 or 5 feet on the edge of the road, that is a traffic project. We'll do it because it's a striping and just, yeah, even the DG path, like that La Costa project, since it was tied to the Vulcan project, it got on our plate. Usually even the DG path goes to CIP. Usually we don't do DG path either.
Okay, moving on quickly. Approval of minutes. Do I have anybody approve the minutes from last meeting?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Glenn Johnson, second. All in favor? Can we just say aye, Amanda?
Sure. Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So, any opposed? All right, minutes are approved. Great. Okay, so, action item, finally, the City of Encinitas Local Roadway Safety Plan.
So to save time, I see Lillian's name here. Just information for the commission. Lillian resigned during the weekend, so.
She what?
Resigned during the
We
weekend.
scared her off?
I don't know, I mean, I've been blamed of a lot of things, but.
Okay. So do we need to move this to a future meeting?
No, I don't think, because when this was posted, she was still the director, so it's technically not wrong, yeah. So just for the purpose of saving time, I'll go through this. I assume that the commissioners have seen this and read this. This is a grant that we have from Caltrans in the amount of $80,000 with only $8,000 city match. $72,000 is covered by Caltrans. The purpose of this study is to evaluate the safety citywide with a new take on it, which is traditionally consultants only go and look for collision history and create these heat maps that shows, okay, you have had fatalities here, injuries here, fender benders here, and just based on the history of collisions at different intersections and roadways of the city. The new approach that started a few years ago is, on top of that, you want this thing called systemic approach, where it says, well, there might be intersections or roads that have a very similar characteristic to these locations that had all these collisions. We just got lucky and those intersections did not have fatalities or injuries. That doesn't mean we should spend all your money if we had all that much money, but to spend all your effort and energy at these locations that had all these collisions and don't spend the same amount on these other locations. So that's the additional, I guess, feature to this study. Caltrans has said we will not be giving highway safety improvement grant money to cities who do not complete this study. So from the next cycle, which starts in April, open for another 2-3 months, I think 3 months. Cycle 11 of Highway Safety Improvement Program, which is about $70-80 million statewide. Cities should have this before they can apply for grant money. So as I said, it starts with, I'm not going to go through all these charts, evaluation of the history of the collisions in the city, the numbers, how different modes, different time of day, different type of vehicle, different type of driver. And this is the time of day chart, as you can see, total, pet, bike. There are a lot of good informational charts and diagrams in there, the property damage, injury, serious injury, visible injury. KSI is killed or serious injury, the type of fatality, the type of collision that happened, the cause of the collision. So these are all traditional. There are a lot of information here, type of the collision they can look at, age of the driveways, race, and then the rankings. So this is the first, it's not a heat map, but something similar. As you can see, these are the number of collisions. You can clearly see El Camino here, Encinitas Boulevard, and 101, Lucadia. Obviously, you can anticipate that based on the volume of traffic they carry. It kind of matches that. Usually, it's very alarming if you have a mismatch, if you have a similar amount of traffic on two roads, but one of them has a lot more collisions. But it kind of matches the traffic that these roads carry. A little bit, I guess, too much in the west of the freeway. In all this neighborhood areas, we have a lot of it downtown and Cardiff. As you can see, we have narrow roads there. So, and this is the KSR, the serious injury or fatality. This is where we don't see as many on El Camino, but we see a lot on 101, which shows the level of pedestrian activity that we have on 101, but we don't have as many on El Camino. Oh, the number of residences that we have on El Camino, I guess, is not that high. Like certain areas we have,
Yeah, you kind of need to normalize it by amount of traffic.
Yeah, it can be
do
done.
that.
No, it's doable. I mean, you can use the vehicle of traffic or the number of residences within a proximity, like 500 feet or 1,000 feet, the number of residences, and then we can. So again, the crash cost, unfortunately, that's how a state does it, and a lot of other states do it. So based on the number of collisions and the type of the collisions you have, you basically put a price tag on the suffering that happens with a collision, and then you anticipate how an improvement can fix things, and then you create a benefit cost ratio. You say, okay, if I do this improvement, my benefit would be that collision that has a price tag of that much will not happen, and the project will cost me this much, so that will give you the BC ratio. This is a somewhat prioritized. Again, it depends how you prioritize the intersection based on what. This is just based on total number of collisions. Similar with the severity prioritization, and all these have costs associated with them. Again, the crash cost is a weird title, but that's how the HC program works. So going further down, this is where the systemic approach comes in. So after they evaluate all the collisions in the city, now they come and say, okay, now let's look for risk factors and find out at these prioritized locations, what are the risks involved? Is it because the road is too wide? Is it because we don't have a sidewalk? Is it because we have too many uncontrolled intersections? So find out what are causing. Is it because we have too many trip generators, parks, schools? Are these causing it? And then try to find similar facilities with similar characteristics that can have the same issue. So the risk factors: distracted driving, young, broadside. And the countermeasures are basically the improvements that you can implement at these different locations, countering the risk that can cause those collisions. So some of the, once I get to the project list, you'll see these S2, S3, these are estate improvements. So these are standard improvements that during HCIP application we have to introduce at different locations. So for example, S2 says we improve our signal hardware, lenses, backplates, retroflective borders around the signal heads, adding new signals, LEDs. So crash reduction factor is 15%, so it's anticipated that these reduce by 15%. Their life is 10-year, and they're 100% eligible for funding. And their systemic opportunity is 100%, very high, because we can apply them to everywhere, basically. It will improve no matter where they're implemented. Signal timing, these are all signal-related improvement. Dilemma zone, so these are all different types of improvements. So for example, the crash reduction factor for a dilemma zone is 30% in the opinion of the state. A dilemma zone detection is where you have a detection area way behind the stop bar at a signal where vehicles are detected at a far distance. So if a vehicle is approaching the intersection very fast at a very high speed, you detect them a couple of 100 feet away, well, not a couple 100 feet, but like 300 feet away, 200 feet away, and that you can add to your yellow interval, or you can extend your green a little bit more so that they won't come into the intersection where it's like 1 second after the red or 1.5 seconds after the red. By this detection, you give yourself that opportunity to prevent the T-bone accident from happening. So these are all the different improvements. These are non-signalized improvement: convert to always stop, install larger additional signs. There are a lot of pedestrian crossing at uncontrolled locations, pedestrian control, upgrade existing ones. So these are all the difference. And then afterwards, they start recommending projects for each one of these types of improvements. So this is basically the meat of the study where we want to go do stuff. So they're saying, based on the collision data, we found that these locations can benefit from this countermeasure, which is pedestrian upgrades at uncontrolled locations, possibly bulb outs. So this is a sample. And they're saying these are the locations that the history of collision shows you can benefit from these improvements. These are based on our systemic evaluation locations that can have similar issues and can benefit from the same improvements. But you might not have necessarily collision history on the table on the right. But they're recommending the same improvement for both of the tables. Signalized, the same. These are pedestrian improvement at signalized intersections. This is what the history of collision shows. These are the systemic locations. And bike improvement, the stop bars, bike boxes, bike lane markings, detectors. So these are the locations where we had some collisions. These are the locations that can systemically benefit from the same improvements. So there is a long list of projects for each countermeasure. And then in the end, they have a list of all of the projects together and the top 5 that they think would have the best opportunity for grants based on their benefit cost ratio. So this is like a sample. They're saying like advanced dilemma zone detection in the city at 10 intersections, based on the collisions that we had, the cost to the city is around $20 million from those serious injuries and fatalities. So if we resolve that, the benefit would be $20 million. The cost is only $700,000. So our benefit cost ratio is 29. Last cycle projects that had a benefit cost ratio of 10 or more, I think 11 or more, they all won the grant. So this kind of shows how, I guess, safe this grant application would be based on this benefit cost application analysis. And then the coverage from the grant. So the grant can cover 100%. Certain project, soft projects like signal timing that do not have like physical improvements on the road, HCIP mostly covers 50% of those only, where you don't actually build something. You just want to use their money to optimize your things. They don't cover as much. But
I have a question on that. I think somewhere in the report it said in the past that the benefit cost ratio tended to be 12 or 12.3.
Last cycle, I think it was 11. I said 10, 11. Yeah, it was 12. Yeah, but it wasn't like that. Cities are getting smarter. So when cycle 6 or cycle 7, the BC would like 2.5 would win, 3 would win.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, cities are getting, so they kind of do it backwards. Used to be like when I was in city of Escondido, we chose the location because we have a problem here, and then we submitted the application. We thought about what we wanted to do there, calculated the BC ratio, and it ended up being 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, whatever, based on what we wanted to do, the number of collisions we had. Now cities do it backward. They find out where they have fatalities and injuries, so the benefit of removing those would be very high, and then create a project for that location to get a high B over C number.
Okay, I have to admit, I was pleased to see HSIP 3 there, the bike box, which has a kind of low BCR of only 8 point something. So
it's risky. Like, yeah, I don't know if it's going to win. Like, well, I don't want to go on record, but we have our ways of making things better.
For that one, actually, I like the idea of bike boxes, especially if they could add the symbol in MUTCD of 9C-7, which shows bicyclists where to place a bicycle to trigger the signal. So that's basically just paint. It increased your cost by a few $100s each signal. But I think that'd help it a lot. I mean, how hard it would be to modify that bike box and include a MUTCD symbol.
Yeah, I mean, when it gets to applying for HCIP, we have to think about, like, we currently have like 6 projects ongoing, and with really no staff resource available, we're already buried on the work. I got to talk to our superiors to see how we want to approach this. If we apply for more grant, because Caltrans is very adamant in like you spending their money very fast. They don't want the money hanging, so they keep alarming you and notifying you, hey, you have to spend the money, you have to spend the money, and then you get on their naughty list.
First of all, it's required, but it's also a wish list of what we'd do if we had the money, right?
Correct, yes. So the city, the planning department, the development services department is working on a Vision Zero plan for the city under direction of council. This will play a major role in their Vision Zero plan. And when they're presenting this, there are other obviously components to it: education, enforcement, or emergency response timing. There are a lot of other pieces to that, but the piece where the city decides to improve its roadway system toward that Vision Zero goal is this document, and how the city decides to tackle these projects on this list. That's something that would come up from the Vision Zero. Maybe a certain pot is dedicated to this Vision Zero implementation, or maybe a new program is defined. I don't know. HCIP is always an option, but HCIP just takes you maybe like 2-3 a year. There are like 100 projects here. There's no way we can wait for 50 cycles of HCIP.
Right, you're doing your due diligence too. Yes.
Yeah, and then how our success rate is, it's a different story. You never know. We're competing against other cities who are as smart as ours.
Those two. Yeah. Okay, thanks.
So yeah, with commission's input, my goal is to take this to council very soon to open up ourselves for the next cycle when it opens mid to late April. So we can apply with having a solid document as our supporting evidence of the benefit of these projects.
Thank you, Abe. Commissioners, any comments or questions? Nope.
I like it.
Okay.
I'd move to approve if that's what's needed.
I'll
Pardon me?
second the motion.
I do move to approve if that's what's needed.
Okay, and
second
we
it.
have a second? Okay, before we vote, I have some comments. I think this is a great thing to have and will help the city receive grants. And so I'm real excited about that because I know city finances are limited. I reviewed all of this, and a couple of things that stood out to me was that the data that they used was 2011 to 2020, so we have to keep that in mind, that that's just that during that period. Also, that these are only, like the accidents reported are only incidents, collisions, what have you, that are reported to law enforcement, correct?
That's correct.
So I think it's safe to assume that there are more collisions, whether have injuries or not, than what is reported here. So I think that's an important thing to remember. On page 2, it talked about stakeholders that were involved in, I think, producing this document. And we had City of Encinitas representatives, Mobility and Traffic Safety Commission, Sheriff Department, Cardiff School District, San Diego Unified School District, and City of Encinitas Development Services Department. I didn't see any involvement from any of our bike and ped advocacy groups led by citizens, just making an observation. And it seemed like most of the input from the stakeholders, really the biggest thing was around travel speeds, speed of vehicles around schools, speed of vehicles around schools, Rancho Santa Fe, El Camino, Lucadia, major entrances to the city should be enforced and speed limit reduced. You know, comments like that. And the systemic contributing factors that stood out to me were high-speed roadways, posted travel speeds of 35 miles an hour and higher, posted speeds over 35 miles an hour, posted speeds over 35 miles an hour. I think it just tells us that our city has way too many high speed limits. Let's see.
That's assuming people
A
follow
lot of
speed limits,
the deaths were bicycles and pedestrians, which is horrible. But I think the main thing, and also enforcement was called out to use mobile photo enforcement at peak hours. Do we have mobile photo enforcement in our city? And that doesn't necessarily mean red light cameras.
I
It's
thought
like
speed cameras were illegal.
We need red light cameras.
Okay, but it's called out here. But anyway, I think it was very obvious that enforcement and speed limits are a major part of all of this. And I know, Abe, that you spent a lot of time and energy on identifying streets that we can perhaps reduce some speed limits on. And I'm just wondering, where is that? Is that going to the council anytime soon?
Correct, yes.
Excellent.
So after our hopes went up with the SB 43, that thing was on the agenda. We put it on hold, but after talks to our attorneys, it seems like there's not much opportunity there for at least another 2-3 years. So we decided to take the previous path of starting with Vulcan and San Alejo, take them off the state list, and start enforcing 25.
Well, I think that will go a long way to address some of the main points from this study about the importance of reducing speeds in our city. So those are all the comments I have. Anybody else?
I have one quick one now that you brought it up, Commissioner Von Neumann. Page 2, where it says, was it a typo? Should that have been the San Diego Unified School District rather than the San Diego Unified
Probably,
School
yes.
District? I mean,
Okay.
you know, we're not, thank you.
Good morning.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. So we can vote.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
Oh, we're gonna go to this.
Okay, so, past 7-0. All right, follow-up log, and hopefully we can go relatively quickly on this.
Yeah, we should be able to go through this quickly. We talked about the, this is not that crosswalk. This is a San Leo crosswalk. It's still TBD. We had a meeting with our CIP engineer who was working on our undercrossing on, I forgot the road's name. No, the south of San Verde, the Verde crossing. We are evaluating two options to see how we can form a crossing there on San Alejo at Verde without actually thinking about the undercrossing there, because that thing has, I think, a price tag of a couple of $1 million. We are checking options to see how we can connect Verde to the trail, because the trail sits about like 30 feet west of the edge of the road. So we have to not only create a crosswalk, but also connect that to the CRT. And there is a drain facility there that we have to go around. So we're working on that, but nothing is yet designed, and we don't have a cost estimate for it. Mobility element update, there's not much going on. They are working on the goals of the mobility element that will be included in it. That will in the future be the guidance for the traffic engineers to evaluate traffic impact at projects. They're defining, okay, we're accepting level of service D on these roads. On these roads, we're okay with E. On these roads, we want a bike improvement. On these roads, we want a ped improvement. So they're setting goals for different roads of the city and different areas of the city. And there are a lot of other stuff with the mobility update going on. South Cycle Track 101, nothing new has happened. As mentioned, we are in conversation with Solana Beach about the possibility of connecting this new sidewalk of ours that we are building at the city border to the Harbaugh Trail. One major concern, obviously, is the cost. The fact that it's at the border kind of justifies some sort of a shared, I guess, joint project, but almost everybody agrees that it's going to 99% serve Solana Beach and 1% Encinitas. It would, I mean, the traffic calming piece of it serves us, but there aren't that many pedestrians on our end that would go all the way to that location. Is mostly their residents want to get connected to the beach. So we're trying to figure out how we can create a joint project that benefits the residents of both of the cities. And then the cost, obviously, we have to find a nexus to see how much we're spending.
Abe, I'm sorry, real quick.
Mhm.
Ask you questions. On that point, there was some discussion last month regarding the speed limit adjustment from Solana Beach. I'm just thinking that intersection just prompted me from Solana Beach north into Encinitas. Has there been Is that something we do with a follow-up log?
We lowered our speed. Solana Beach told me that they have approved lower speed limit north of the city.
They have,
south
they
of the
have,
city. They have.
and it's posted 35 now.
Okay.
But obviously, the vast majority of automobiles don't follow that.
I mean, at least they can write tickets now. Not much on the e-bikes. No changes. Crosswalk at La Costa on Highway. We're waiting for the streetscape on that, TBD. The crosswalk evaluation at several intersections, we have finished our data collection. We have discussed this with our fire department. The fire department, fire chief expressed interest in attending here to discuss his concern with projects like this. Chief Stein with Lillian, they both said they will attend to discuss these when we want to present them. Now that Lillian is not here, I'll check with Jill to see, Jill and Chief, if they both want to come. But when we were presenting these, our fire department, our chief and our fire marshal recently have been very, very, I guess, adamant in rejecting certain requests for speed tables and speed cushions. We adjusted our design of our speed cushions recently to make them more in line with what they like to see in the city. That accommodates their apparatus a little bit better. Still, it has a calming effect on the response time, obviously. But yeah, we'll come back next month with the evaluation, and the fire chief will come and we'll see how we can move this forward. We certainly don't want to recommend something, because these are, as you know, not residential locations. These are classified streets. So if we recommend per our code, council would have to override our policy. We can only install speed tables and cushions on classified roads with council approval. We certainly don't want to take a recommendation to council and then have a negative recommendation from the fire department. So we want to be on the same page when we're reviewing and approving these. 39 RSP we talked about tonight. Rancho Santa Fe corridors, we are working on the crosswalks only for this fiscal year. We're working on the design and cost estimate. Unfortunately, every single location that was identified in the study for a new Continental upgrade crossing needs all four corners improved for ADA. So that bumps up the price tag of each one of the intersections by $15,000 to $20,000. So we're looking only at just for ADA about $50,000 to $60,000, and then an additional $15,000 to $20,000 for converting them, I guess, to high visibility. But we are working on the crossings this fiscal year.
Thank you. Could you do me a favor and pull the intersection of Lone Jack and Rancho Santa Fe Road up on your Google Maps, please? Yeah. Perfect. So at this intersection, can you share with me or with the committee? Already has a fatality. It already shows up as one of the most dangerous intersections per the report that we just approved. And there are no sidewalks here. What's the status of sidewalks on this location? In fact, there was a child hit just the other day.
So again, sidewalk is not on my list. What we're working on right now is improving this intersection.
Right.
And then at this curve, additional of some pavement legends that advance warning for a crossing here, high visibility marking here, additional signage here. So there are a bunch of signing and striping improvements that will be added here,
Right.
but there's no sidewalk on our project. And it wasn't even, I don't believe there was a sidewalk even recommended in the study. It wasn't there.
So there's no sidewalk here at one of the busiest intersections in the area with a fatality recorded and a kid hit just this week going to school. Because again, we have got OPE and Degaino half a mile from this location. Is it too late to, I guess this is a Commissioner Corner question, or this is a follow-up to this item on the log?
I think this could be a follow-up to this item on the log, but if you want to have further discussion and further information from the staff, then it has to go on the
Then I'll
follow-up log.
wait for the follow-up.
Or, yeah, from the commissioner corner to get it put
To
on
get
the
it put on, so I'll wait.
the log, yeah.
Okay.
The St. John access, we talked about. The crosswalks, we talked about. La Costa corridor improvements. I am not sure how much I mentioned to commission. We are actively working on 2-3 different fronts to find a solution for La Costa. Mobility Element Consultant is working on optimizing and finalizing the cross-section for La Costa to say how many lanes with or without a two-way left turn lane road, sidewalk, bikeways, buffered, non-buffered, protected, non-protected. So they're working on the crossing. At the same time, city is working on the Ponto Beach settlement agreement to see what opportunities we have to work jointly with City of Carlsbad to improve La Costa with that pot. There are certain improvements that are allowed to be, I guess, we can tap into that fund and then use it towards certain improvements. The areas that were impacted from Ponto project. Yeah, there are a lot of different things. Our attorneys are involved. Our two of our council members, I believe, have formed a subcommittee that they're working with Carlsbad on La Costa. So there's a lot going on. Hopefully, we will soon have a ultimate cross-section for La Costa that everybody agrees on, and a good funding source to convert La Costa to that ultimate cross-section.
Sorry, I have a quick question about that. I just wanted to circle back with the stop sign that's at Vulcan and La Costa, and it has been a really great improvement for cars egress and ingress onto Vulcan, and pedestrians as well, and I think cyclists. But the problem that I am seeing in the neighborhood is that westbound traffic from the 5 freeway heading towards the 101 is backing up all the way to the 5 freeway during peak traffic times. So especially in the evenings, you get off the freeway and you pretty much stop right at that gas station. And part of the issue is the people that want to are waiting to turn left onto Sheridan. We now have the bollards, which are great protection for the bike lane, which I think was a huge improvement, but because it is only one lane, cars cannot get around. So as you look at that, I just wanted to maybe suggest that we get a left-hand turn lane there. That would really, if we could squeeze it in, then cars could queue to make a left, and or if you were going to put a stop sign there. I mean, I know another stop sign is a nightmare, but again, cars are backing up because it's
I
causing some
myself, I'm
backup.
a very strong proponent for the two-way left turn lane.
Good.
A lot of our residents don't like to see a wider La Costa, but with the projects that we have north of La Costa, we have like 2-3 major development projects north of La Costa. Eastbound left turn can be an issue too. All those vehicles going into their houses later, they all have to find gaps, and if they all stop the eastbound traffic to find gaps, it will be a major problem for
Yeah.
eastbound too.
It's a problem. And
So that two-way left turn lane can be a very, both contribute to safety and mobility at the same time. People can just wait there to find a gap and don't block traffic.
Yeah, and I do appreciate the stop sign, but I think that the light signal would have synced better and had traffic flow better. So I'm still hoping that at some point we get that light signal or a roundabout or something else. But I just, thank you.
Yeah, I fought for the signal hard that night. I tried.
Me too. I wrote lots of letters, but I was not on this commission and couldn't speak, so.
No, this commission voted for it. Council at that night, I mean, the price tag, I guess, like it was thinking about the city in whole, not just one project. We're talking about 300, because that one, I think our cost estimate was like 350. 350,000 compared to the 5,000 for the stop sign. Yeah, I mean, as a council member, it makes it a very tough decision to make, so.
Yeah, I know.
I
It's
kind of
just
feel
with
for them.
all
I
of
don't want.
the new developments, but thank you.
And then Clark Avenue, we talked about it, so that's about. So one thing about Clark we didn't get to talk about, I know we talked about this whole development thing a lot. I don't want commission to feel like I don't like to do this. I don't have any problem gathering information. I'm not sure if I was clear enough or informative enough. I don't do the review. We have an engineer who does it, but I have done it a lot before, so it doesn't really take that much effort from me. So it's not, I don't really consider it a waste of time or anything, or it's not, it doesn't take too much energy from me. I would say the maximum time this whole thing today took from me was probably 2-3 hours max. I can do that. What I feel is for our residents, I don't want, I mean, if they feel happy, all good. If they feel satisfied with how we deal with these development projects here is working for them, I'm totally fine. I just don't want them to feel like we're doing something that is wasting their time, but I mean I myself. Like we're putting an agenda together that they, oh, why did you put it on the agenda? This lady, like, I felt, she said her son passed away at Pepper Tree Lane. She said, you have development project review. Are you talking about the development project that's happening on Pepper Tree? Apparently there's like 19 houses or something being built there. I have to go check with our engineer. But she said, well, there was a fatality there. Why are you putting development review and you're not talking about these things? You don't care about city safety. And I kind of, like when I hear these things, like this lady came all the way probably from Pepper Tree Lane because she saw something on our agenda and then we're not really doing anything. I just want to find a win-win situation to provide you the information you need, but at the same time not have people here. I mean, there were like, what, 10, 12 people tonight about Clark. I mean, did they all leave happy? Like, I mean, Commissioner Trout mentioned something about sending a letter. I think that for sure made them happy, but short of that, I mean, if I'm a resident, I don't know. Like, if you come all the way here, spend 2-3 hours.
Well, if Commissioner Von Neumann here, I think it's important to allow people to speak. It's one of the things that I've accepted as being a member of the commission, that I'm going to hear people talk, and I think that's perfectly fine. I think we made it clear that we are not involved and cannot approve or disapprove of a project. I don't know what more we can do other than that, other than to listen to them. Anybody?
Well, I'm troubled because I think the people who are coming to speak on these issues really think we have a voice, and we really don't have a voice.
Right.
And that's not fair to them, and they're coming and they're spending time, and then they leave frustrated, and I understand that. They need to be going to the Planning Commission, and I think we're misleading them, thinking they can come here.
I asked Amanda to add 2 lines on top of the, I don't know if you've seen them, on top of the development review summary that says, this is for informational purposes only. Traffic Commission, Mobility Commission will not take action on these. Mm-hmm. But I'm not sure how much the message really conveys. Like, do they even see that? Do they not? Maybe we can put a disclaimer, Amanda. I don't know. Maybe we can check with clerk. Maybe put a disclaimer on the commission page that clarifies our role and what we deal with, and maybe the Planning Commission's role for these topics. Attend. Because she mentioned something about, okay, these 19 units are being added. The site distance there is very problematic. I was like, well, this is the place for it. If you feel like we're missing something, the site distance is not evaluated, the traffic study should look into it. Certainly mention this, or just send an email to me or Amanda. But for conditioning that project for building less units or build a signal there, that's not this commission. So maybe some sort of a clarification on our website, because I would assume people who go to that page and download the agenda and see these, they probably can read other stuff there too. Maybe we can put something to clarify. I just, again, don't get me wrong, I don't have any problem with, this is my job and I enjoy it. There's no, I just don't want them to feel like when they go out the door, that was 2 hours of my time wasted. I don't want them to say that. Hopefully they won't, but.
So, Commissioner Schultz, so do you think we should not have that on the list or a part of the agenda packet? Is that what you're leaning toward?
I'm leaning toward that, but I did see that you had it on the agenda that these are just, we're not going to be, we can't deal with these directly. And I think that your suggestion of maybe being more clear on that would help. But these people certainly have to have left quite frustrated today.
I think
This
they
is Commissioner
understood.
Prendergast. I completely disagree. The people came, we heard their voice, they were able to access a city officer who explained parking counts to them, who explained traffic counts to them. They came away with more knowledge about the process than they arrived. Now, did they hear what they wanted to hear? Well, I can't speak for them, but they certainly left here with more knowledge, more understanding of the process, where to take their concerns to. They can talk to their city council member. They're participating in our city government. And yes, were they frustrated because maybe we didn't solve their problem, but we heard their issues. We gave them some direction. We explained what an ADT was. We explained the counts. We explained what was going on. And for some people, that's behind closed doors. And here it's open, and here they get to voice their concerns. And our job, while we might not be able to solve their problems, we can certainly listen to them and give them some direction and let them know how the process will continue. Because sometimes you just don't know how the process works. And so this is kind of how it works. Some things we can do, some things we can't, but at least they walked away smarter and more knowledgeable than when they came.
And that's true.
yeah,
That's
I
true.
agree.
But I think that they came thinking that we have a voice, and we have to recognize we don't.
Yeah, I kind of agree with both of you. You're both right. But I thought it was also helpful if they knew exactly what our role is and what our power is.
So we continue
might be-
doing this this way. I kind of agree with Commissioner Prendergast too. We continue doing this in the same fashion. We just maybe add a little bit more information on the agenda package or on the webpage to kind of clarify when they want to come in what they should be expecting.
And maybe when that agenda item comes up, if you could just announce, like maybe read that and say, this is informational, we cannot, we don't have the authority to take action, but we can discuss what's happening with this development project. And on that note, I meant to ask, I wanted to know if there was a way to get the 1967 West Vulcan project back on that list of development projects, because that one I thought was on there at one point, but I don't see it on there anymore. It's the 72-unit apartment building that's on Vulcan. Could you add that one
Was
to
there,
that?
I think, about the walkway improvement and what their,
Yeah.
I guess, role was in doing what improvements there? I think they're from the Costa Court. They're improving the easterly edge. If you want, I don't know, I think it already went to Planning Commission. It didn't. I don't know.
It did, yeah, it went to
So
Planning
you want
Commission.
something similar, although it has already gone through the Planning Commission, like a review of the
Well, I
project?
guess just maybe like an update on what was being done. So
Okay.
I don't know, I guess I thought that's what that log was for, was just so the neighborhood would know what was being done on that project. So if you wouldn't mind, if you could just add a little paragraph on there, if it doesn't take too much time.
To add it on the log or to add it as a presentation, next time I'm on my agenda to.
No, just on this piece of paper, this,
Oh,
this,
okay.
this, if
Development
you could just add it on
Okay.
the development projects, thank you.
No, my
Just-
advice to the engineer who puts this together is the ones that have a active status. When that one went to Planning Commission, it technically is there's no
It's
activity.
done.
Yeah.
Okay, then never mind,
I'll double check. I believe it went to Planning Commission and it's done, but I'll double check.
I guess I was thinking it would just be what was happening, like it was currently being built, the sidewalk was being put in, that
Oh,
kind
no,
of
yeah.
thing.
This one, the direction from the commission was for active project. This was just submitted. This is this big. This is the impact. This is going to Planning Commission on this date. The ones that are already gone to council, gone to commission, we take them off.
Yeah, and one of the reasons for this is so that when we're out in the community and people ask us, what's going on with South Rancho Santa Fe Road with 14 single-family homes, we may not be able, we won't have to go, what? If we have it, and we're somewhat familiar with it. That's the main reason for it.
Well, maybe, may I suggest that we put just a link to the Planning Commission agenda on this, so that if someone was on it, again, it's just cross-referencing and allowing somebody who maybe hits our website, oh, if you want to know more, here's the link to the Planning Commission. I mean, it's a simple little HTML link. It's not a big deal, but again, it just provides another point of reference for citizens to understand how the city works.
Commissioner Johnson here. I look at these people on Clark Avenue. Their homes are their biggest investment in the world, and they're seeing it threatened by a development. And there's a lot of emotion in homeowning, and seeing your children grow up here. It's possible that how do you put it? It's possible that this can work as it's proposed by the developer, but people are wanting proof of that, and the only proof they'll actually get is when the Planning Commission approves something, and then when it gets built, then they have to see what the result is, and we'll have to, as a traffic and safety commission, we'll have to intervene if something has to be changed.
Thank you. I sympathize with anybody who's impacted by major development. But moving on, if okay, Commissioner Corner, anybody have anything for Commissioner Corner? Oh, no, don't, sorry.
I apologize. I meant to actually ask why this was not on one of the updates for, I guess it's up with C, when we did the updates on safety and mobility projects. So it's on C on our agenda. I just want to know why I want to know an update on the Hymettus roundabout, or pardon me, the Hygeia roundabout. So I was wondering if we could add that, maybe make that number 11, the Hygeia roundabout, so we know what's happening with that. And then also just an update on the roundabout at Eolis and Hillcrest, because those were that project has gone in, and I know it's supposed to be there for a year, and then it was going to be reevaluated and see if a permanent one was going to be put in. So I was just wondering if those two could also be added to letter C on the agenda.
Not on the follow-up log, just on the information
Yeah,
that Abe gives on
yeah,
projects?
on those projects.
Okay.
When I look at the agenda, it's under C, and then we have, there's La Costa Avenue walkway. So I was just wondering if those could be 11 and 12, or I don't know where they go, but I was thinking that's because they are projects that are underway and we need updates on them.
Is that something that you can put onto that part of your report, Abe?
Sure. Yeah, technically speaking, since it's a new item, it would have to be voted by two other commissioners, added to the log, and then not all of the log items, as you know, become reports. Many of the log items, I just bring them as a presentation, as an information item.
Perfect.
But it doesn't matter,
However it works, I just was
Yeah.
wondering if I could just get an update, and I didn't know where they would be plugged into this. So thank you, whatever you think.
These are valid concerns. Technically speaking, one commissioner might like to hear about something that the other commissioners might not find.
I'd like to know about it, so maybe.
Okay, so let's put it on the follow-up log, and it's proposed by Commissioner Hansberger, supported by Commissioner Pendergrast. Anybody, we need how many more?
One.
I'll support it
two more,
also.
yeah.
So we'll add that to the follow-up log.
Thank
The Hygeia and 1967.
No, pardon me, Hygeia, and then I was just saying the Eolis.
Eolis.
Pardon me, the Eolis Hillcrest roundabout. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Commissioners.
Anybody else with Commissioner Corner?
Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson here. I had a long talk with a member of the Senior Citizens Commission regarding things where their bailiwick kind of overlaps ours, because There are a lot of people in town who are aging in place in their homes, and the world is different than it was when I grew up, I'll tell you. And anyway, we might want to start a common dialogue to see what we and the seniors and other commissions, but especially senior citizens, can do together. For instance, they're concerned with the traffic and safety for the senior citizens, and that's our thing. But they want to have information on it too.
They want to what?
The Senior Citizens Commission is working with people who are actually aging in place, it seems like. A lot of people in Encinitas don't move into a retirement home just because they retire. They own their house and they're happy here, and this is the best place in the world to live, in the opinion of many of the residents. So the Senior Citizens Commission would like to start a dialogue with us on traffic issues and safety issues as senior citizens are affected.
How can we do that in respective of the Brown Act and all that kind of stuff? How do we have a dialogue with the Senior Commission?
It's usually a subcommittee of one from each commission.
Pardon?
It's usually a subcommittee of one member from each commission.
Yeah, subcommittees.
It can't be more than
I'm
two.
just bringing this up because I think the ball is in their court.
Okay.
But we'll likely be approached by them formally.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for letting us know that.
Commissioner Wong here. So I know on the Environmental Commission, we had joint meetings with the Urban Forest, sorry, I don't remember the name, Urban Forest Committee. Just because we had joint interests, just as we as traffic may have joint interests with the Environmental Commission, but I don't think the Brown Act is necessarily pertinent as long as all the members are here.
Okay.
It's just a matter of arranging it with them, some kind of MOU or something.
Okay. Anybody else for Commissioner Corner?
Yes. Commissioner Trouth, so we talked about writing a letter. So I guess I'm wondering, the Clark project, like, do we know when it's going to go to Planning Commission?
I don't know.
No, I want to say late April, but I can't get the date.
Are we allowed to talk to planning commission members?
I believe so.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, you would.
we are, okay, so I'll just call Bruce.
Okay.
I'll get an update.
All right.
So are we going to write a letter collectively?
Who's going to write the letter? That's the question.
I guess we need a subcommittee.
Or we just need a volunteer to write the letter.
All right, this is the Clark letter?
Yeah.
And it needs to be done and submitted to the planning commission before?
Oh, we said that.
Before mid-April, I would
Yeah.
say, right?
Yeah. I'll write it with someone else, but I don't want to do it. I mean, I still feel like I'm a little green, so.
You can write well.
How about both of you guys?
Well, I'll give you a hand. We'll take a crack at it.
Okay.
I got a long weekend ahead of me.
And I presume that we can share drafts of this letter via email among all of us?
I would not recommend that.
No, that's a serial meeting.
Okay, that's why I'm asking.
All right, so how does?
So you'll bring
so how
it,
does
you'll
this
bring
work?
it to our.
We write a
So
letter.
how it worked was before, like usually Chair Peter Cole, like after, like whoever accepts the responsibility, in this current format, the way I hear, it's the two of you. So you get the idea at this meeting, you get what you want to write, the two commissioners write it, one of them or both of them, they can either go to the planning commission meeting, they will express that they are representing the traffic commission, they are a member of the traffic commission, and this is what was discussed at the meeting. This is their.
But don't the other commissioners have a chance
Yeah,
to?
how would that get approval from the commission?
They need to be able to review it, don't they, and approve it?
Well,
'Cause we
that's the
can't
thing,
go
like
rogue.
you at that point are not, that letter will not be from the traffic commission.
Okay,
That letter will be your,
from two commissioners.
correct. But then you would say, we discussed this at the traffic commission, This was our collective, like we thought this would be, like when a resident comes in and says, all of my neighbors think like this,
Okay.
that would basically have the same weight.
So we basically write it as individual commissioners, but not as a
Correct,
commission.
not as a traffic commission. If you want to do that, if you want to have like a traffic commission, that would basically become a agenda where a commissioner brings a letter and the other commissioners approve it. That becomes the commission's position on this. But it would delay you for a month.
Right.
So do we have another meeting before the planning commission?
That's the thing. So
Yeah.
if you find, I can let you know. I can have Amanda let you know. If you have a meeting before the planning commission date, you can certainly it would be as simple as sending the letter beforehand to Amanda. We'll add it to the agenda as a commissioner-initiated item.
And what is the timeline before, Amanda, I'm sorry?
Oh, just 4 days before, like as
4
long as we
4
get,
days
yeah.
before the next meeting is our deadline to get it to the
Correct.
commission, right? Then we just have to stagger where the planning commission is going to take Clark, in this case, to commission for a vote.
So you two, or one of you, or the two of you can write the letter, but because of the Brown Act, you cannot communicate it with the others. You bring it to the commission at the meeting, the other members can weigh in. If they want to change the letter, yes, you can tweak it.
Okay.
And then it gets approved with the changes that happened that night, and then the letter is official. The chair can sign it, and it would be the official position of the commission.
Okay.
It would
Are
be
you-
much more effective if you have a vote of
course.
all of us.
Absolutely.
Significantly more important.
So the plan of attack is that Commissioner Pendergrass and Commissioner Trouth will write this letter and bring it, and it will be brought to our Mobility and Traffic Safety Commission at the next meeting to discuss and approve, or not.
Or not.
So technically, this gets on the log too.
Pardon?
To make it more complicated, this has to get on the log now.
Oh, okay.
I want to do it. I need 2 other people to say
Correct.
yes.
To support an
wait, wait.
agenda
I agree.
item, that is to write a
Hansberger?
letter
I
to the
think it's
planning commission.
unanimous.
Yes. Thank you for stepping up, you two. I appreciate it.
So anybody else on it? Yes.
I have
Oh,
one
no, no,
thing.
please.
No, I didn't.
No,
You
I've been
go
talking
ahead.
all
I've
night.
been. Me too.
All right, so I'd like to go back, Abe, and revisit the Rancho Santa Fe Road and Lone Jack intersection. Yes, there was a study there that we did, or you did, on this intersection. And you're saying, we talked about this intersection being a roundabout, and not only this one, but the one, I believe, down at El Camino del Norte.
Del Norte.
And Rancho Santa Fe Road also were 2 that were going to be studied, and clearly it takes lots of money and study costs as part of the result of that consultant's report, right? So now the question becomes, it's going to take,
Sorry, I thought you said are going to be studied. That thing is done.
right.
So the
well,
council did not approve any additional funds to design or evaluate a roundabout.
All right, so the
No, no.
report was done, and the council has made no efforts to
Continue.
continue or incorporate these. Maybe the council will, as part of the next fiscal plan, I don't know. That's coming up, I guess, in our next fiscal year is July, so maybe it gets reintroduced and that's up to them, right? So in that plan, if you can recall, so what happens if they don't do it? This is a brutal intersection, as the report showed. So if they're not going to take it to the next level and do a roundabout, either at this location or the one immediately to the south, how do we consider a study on behalf of the engineering department to consider sidewalks at that location? Seeing that we've had a death and we just had another near fatality of a child in the last week.
Yeah, as mentioned, I am not aware how we prioritize our sidewalk projects. So, but the person to contact is our city engineer.
Okay. But I understand that there are other sidewalks that are being considered on the follow-up log as a request on behalf of the commission, such as the San Alejo and Manchester. So how can I, as a commissioner?
Well, San Diego and Manchester, we're not building a sidewalk. As said, if it becomes a project, that is a different story. It's a major CIP project that would have to be undertaken by CIP. It will not be a traffic project anymore.
Right.
The catalog version is not something I'll do. I won't even undertake that project.
Okay.
So we will present it to council. If council says, go do it, spend $800,000 and build that catalog version there, that's something that our CIP team will undertake. If it's something, if the watered down version, I guess I hate to call it what, the low-hanging fruit,
Right.
most efficient version, that's something I'll do. Restriping the road, adding signage, removing existing signing and striping, adding new ones. So that's where traffic does the project. But to build a sidewalk here, we really don't have, like, traffic doesn't have a say in sidewalks at all.
But doesn't the sidewalk process begin with the Traffic Commission requesting to you, and then if I have to, address that with Council Member Mosca, who can then bring it up on a CIP situation? But I'm stymied on how can we know that this is a dangerous intersection. It's four-way stopped. It's a brutal intersection. When the fire truck is right there, how can we start the process of studying if that should be a sidewalk or not?
My thought, and this is what it seems like Abe always looks at these intersections so amazing and comes up with ideas. I'm always so impressed. But, I mean, what it seems like you've done, like on Vulcan, where we can't afford sidewalks, but it's a restriping, or on this, the Manchester, it's basically moving the road and restriping, so on Vulcan, we are not getting any sidewalks. There's no money, and we've been begging literally since my kids were in high school. I've been coming to these meetings, but what Abe figured out for us is to change the road layout and paint that walk path like they have on. So I'm just throwing this out there. I don't know if that's an option, but I feel like you two are in a circle here, and maybe that's something is that an option, Abe?
Certainly, like, we can't think about other stuff, and Rancho Santa Fe does have a similar scenario on that study that talks about a similar approach, which is, I think, because the fact that we have the trail on the east side of Rancho Santa Fe, the consultant suggested we shift things to the east, narrow the lane down, and Rancho Santa Fe actually has a better situation compared to Vulcan because it's a bit wider. On the west side, we can have 7-8 feet of space, which is a very, very good path. That cross-section is on a proposal, and that's something that we are looking into for the next fiscal year to actually implement, to remove the existing striping, shift the lanes. But that's different from what Commissioner is after, which is actual sidewalk, like concrete project.
I'm sorry, I think I misspoke. I apologize. A crosswalk, not a sidewalk.
Oh.
A crosswalk. I'm sorry, I completely misspoke. Wrong walk.
The crosswalk is we're working on it.
You are working on a crosswalk?
Correct.
Okay.
The crosswalks, we're working on it, being designed.
My bad.
The 4 corners I mentioned that need ADA.
Yes.
Yeah, those, we are trying to do them before July.
Before July. Okay.
We're trying. I'm not saying we will be successful.
No, I understand. I'm sorry. It's a crosswalk. I'm saying if we're not going to have a traffic circle, then we need
Correct.
something.
No, the high visibility crossing Continental with 4 ADA ramps, yeah, we are working on it.
I apologize
Well, it's
to everybody.
9.
Thank you very much.
I think that's what happened.
Let's blame Chair for the 9 o'clock adjournment.
Yeah, we're all going to turn into pumpkins.
I have one more announcement.
Absolutely.
I'm so sorry.
No, no need to apologize.
I feel I've been talking too much tonight, but I just have one more update I wanted to do for just the kind of the North Lucadia residents, was that I was informed through council that starting in April, from La Costa moving south, they are going to start putting up railroad fencing that is going to go all the way through our entire corridor. So just for, fellow mobility people, we're about to get the entire Lucadia section of Encinitas blocked off we have no rail crossing, and we are about to be fenced in North Lucadia. So just, I can imagine that we might start seeing more residents once this gets out, coming to speak to us to, again, try to just fast track some sort of crossing for North Lucadia, since we still have none. But anyway, I just wanted to share that. That's coming our way.
Okay, thank you.
What about Coastal Commission? I don't know if you guys have followed the whole Del Mar Bluff issue, where Coastal Commission has basically shut down the fence.
In Del Mar.
In Del Mar. on the bluffs. The Coastal Commission said, no, you can't, North County Transit cannot do a fence. So,
Was it in there right away?
That's Del Mar.
I'm sorry?
Was it in NCTD right away?
I believe, I'm probably uninformed, ill-informed, just like my crosswalk versus sidewalk. But my guess, my understanding is it was, and the NTD wanted to put up the fence so that people wouldn't go down the bluff, and the Coastal Commission said, no, you can't block access
It
to.
depends whether the Federal Surface Transportation Board,
Oh, you did? I'm sorry, what is it?
It's very clear. NCTE pushes for sole authority over fences.
yes, that's what I'm saying. It depends whether the federal authority has more authority than the Coastal Commission. The Surface Transportation Board is federal. Now, we're talking about the powers of our board before, and I know we certainly don't have those. So I don't know why we're discussing this. Why are we even discussing this? Because
Okay.
It's coming our way.
All
it's
right,
not coming our way.
so anybody else on Commissioner Corner?
Second.
All right, all in favor of adjournment? Aye.
Aye.
Aye, we'll just say aye. I want to thank Abe and Amanda for being here so late and putting up with us.
Thank you,
Appreciate
James,
it.
for joining.
Good night. Good night.